Welcome, everybody. We're about to begin our meeting this evening. We have a lot on the docket, so is the city solicitor here?
He's going to print some more agendas.
Do we need him at this point in time?
No.
No?
I think he's
Okay.
making more copies for, if you just want to announce they're making more copies of the agenda.
Good evening and welcome to the City of East Providence City Council meeting. Today is Tuesday, May 7th. I ask that you all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Lawson, would you like to lead us into the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have a heavy docket this evening, so I'd like to proceed. But before we go on this evening with our docket, I just want to make one acknowledgement. Most of us may know, if not all of us know, that today is National Nurses Day. So we all know that Councilwoman Souza is a nurse here. So we wanted to thank her for her time, her efforts, and her commitment to helping people out.
Thank you. Thank you.
So on behalf of the City Council, we'd like to present Miss Souza with some flowers.
Thank you.
Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
People alive.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You're more than welcome. Thank you. Madam Clerk, may we proceed?
Yes.
Mr. President, if I may, just quickly, I'd like to move to seal the minutes from executive session.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to seal the minutes from the executive session by Councilman Cahoon. Anyone like to second that?
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Souza. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza. Aye. Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye. Next item, please.
Approval of consent calendar for the vote.
Someone like to make a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Mr. President, so move.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Rodrick to approve the consent calendar. Anyone like to second that motion?
Second it.
Seconded by Councilman, oh man, losing the thought of all councilmen up here. Morato, roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza. Aye. Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye. Next item, please.
Licenses not requiring public hearing for the vote. Peddler's license, Pelagis. Carlos Alberto Abuelita, 55 Bacon Street, Pawtucket, Rhode Island.
Is the applicant here this evening? If so, please step up to the podium.
This resume.
For the record, please, would you like to raise your right hand? Just like to swear you in. Would you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Dígale que sí, yes, I do. Dígale que sí, yes, I do.
Yes.
La verdad, yes.
Yes, I do.
Okay. State your name and address for the record, please.
Carlos Alberto Arboleda.
Dirección.
Thank you.
21 Cliff Street, Central Falls, Rhode Island.
Okay. Does the applicant have everything that he needs?
Yes, in this matter, there was a BCI that needed to be performed. Due to the nature of the license, that was turned in, that came back fine, came back clean.
Okay. So is there anything that the council, at the pleasure of the council at this point in time, have any questions?
I have none. Move to approve.
Okay. Any concerns? So we have a motion to approve by Councilman Cahoon. Anyone like to second that motion?
Second that motion.
Seconded by Councilwoman Souza. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza. Aye. Council Vice President
Rodrick.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye. Thank you, sir. You're all set.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome.
Thank
Next item, please.
Hawker license, Phantom Fireworks, Eastern Region, LLC, Joshua Nielsen, 141 Newport Avenue, 02916.
Mr. Nielsen, please step up to the podium. Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Yeah, thank you. Could you state your name and address for the record, please?
Joshua Nielsen, Vernon, Connecticut.
Okay. Madam Clerk, does all his records in order at this time?
Everything's in place, and just for the record, you have it for the 60 days that you applied for. Is that right?
Yes, that was the lowest option. Our actual operating season's only going to be from June 26th through July 6th.
Okay, great. So that'll cover you between then. Just
Yes.
wanted to clarify that.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, perfect. Yes, everything's fine.
Okay, at the pleasure of the council, anyone have any questions?
I do.
Please.
Mr. President. Mr. Nielsen, the location where you're going to be vending from, is that a tent? Is that a building? Is that?
It is not. It'll be inside the building. It'll be our third season operating there. It's the previous Uncle Tony's Pizza, so we operate on the inside of the building.
Okay. And with regard to security and, fire safety, I mean, these are obviously flammables, volatile
Correct.
stuff.
So we do provide an exterior storage container, which we use to keep surplus inventory, which is a metal container, so it's flame resistant, so that this way all the product is not inside the building at one time. This way we stay within compliance to the NFPA fire codes.
All right. That is all in compliance then? Okay.
Yes.
And have you ever experienced any trouble by way of, mishap or somebody, committing any kind of mayhem or?
No, not in East Providence, no. With our third season, we haven't had any problems.
And Mr. President, I would like to mention that I spoke with the mayor. If you recall at the last meeting, I had indicated I wanted to hear from, police, fire department if there are any concerns. The mayor confirmed that he's heard no concerns. So
Okay.
my questions have been answered.
All right, very good. Any other questions at this point in time for the council?
Mr. President, all permits seem to be approved. Police and fire have approved. I would move approval.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor for approval from Councilman Rodrick. Would anyone like to second that motion?
Second.
We have a second by Councilwoman Souza. Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morado.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
And Council President Brito.
Aye, thank you.
Thank
You're
you
all
very
set.
much.
Thank you.
Good luck. Next item, please.
Victualling license, Class 3, Jaya's Restaurant, Mahanadi Indian Restaurant, doing business as Jaya's Restaurant, Maramuthu, Munaya Sanami, 615 Waterman Avenue.
Good evening.
Hello.
Mr. Solicitor, would you like to swear them in, please?
Yes, I do.
State your name and address for the record, please.
Marimuthu Muniyasamy, 615 Waterman Avenue.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk, is everything all set at this time?
Yes, they went ahead and they did have a temporary license in the meantime, which they came into our office and took care of, and everything is settled. Paperwork is right.
At the pleasure of the council, anyone have any questions at this time?
Mr. President, is there any reason why we can't move to approve both C and D? I mean, for the same establishment?
Just for separate licenses, it's up to the pleasure of the council, and actually, Mike, I defer to you.
You can bundle them.
We can bundle them?
I'd like to move to approve both license, both the victualling license and the holiday sales license.
Any other council person have any questions or concerns about that?
I just wanted to say thank you for coming and taking over that building. It has been vacant for quite some time on Waterman Avenue, and it would be a great addition to have your family take over and provide some different cultural food for our community. So I thank you.
Thank you for you.
So again-
also. I'm the first business here doing in America. I don't know what to say. Yes, I'm learning. I don't know. I don't know about this anything. I just passed the health department. I opened the business. I don't know body's coming and something. After I apply a temporary license, now only I'm getting.
Good.
Okay, thanks.
Very good. Well, we wish you a lot of luck, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. This is a bundle, so we're doing C and D at this point in time. We have a motion on the floor. Is that a motion, Councilman Cahoon?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Rodrick. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza. Aye. Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye, thank you. All set.
Good luck.
Next item, please.
licenses requiring public hearing for the vote. A BV license El Mariachi, 736 North Broadway, 02914, Jose Lopez.
The applicant want to just step up to the podium, please? Mr. Solicitor, would you like to swear them in?
Sure. Could you raise your hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth before this council?
Yes.
Thank you.
Samuel Miller, I'm here with my client and the attorney for the El Mariachi.
Okay.
Everything is in place. They have been wonderful to work with.
Okay. At the pleasure of the council, the council have any questions at this time or concerns they need to address? Okay, with that being
None.
said,
So move.
okay,
Approval.
Public hearing.
anyone for the public would like to speak for or against this license? I'll repeat myself one more time. If not, we're going to proceed with a vote. Anyone from the public, this is a public hearing. Anyone would like to speak for or against this hearing, this license? If no, public hearing is closed at this point in time. I'll leave it at the pleasure of the council. We have a motion on the floor by Councilman Rodrick for approval. Would anyone like to second that motion?
Second.
We have a second by Councilwoman Souza. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morado.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
And Councilman Brito.
Aye. Thank you, sir. You're all set.
Thank you.
Moving right along to communications.
Communications, 10th Annual Brown Play School 5K Run Approval happening on May 19th, 2019. For the vote, Zachary Pereira.
Mr. Pereira, please step up to the podium.
Good evening.
Good evening. You don't need to be sworn in for communications. So you could proceed.
Yeah, so this is the 10th annual Run to Mama 5K out of the Brown Play School. It's a fundraiser that we do over the last 10 years, very successful, and we're just seeking approval to have our 10th annual road race.
Madam Clerk, is all his paperwork in place at this point in time?
In regards to the clerk's department, there isn't any paperwork that needs to be
Or with
necessarily sent in.
police?
But
Yep,
with the
police have been
everything's already
contacted.
been
Everything's
done.
all set for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
They've done a really thorough job.
Okay. So we're all set with the police department, no questions or concerns, or they didn't raise
We haven't
any
received
questions?
anything. No,
Okay. At
nothing.
the pleasure of the council, anyone have any questions at this point in time regarding this
What's
5K
the
race?
route that you guys take for the,
It's the same route that they use for the fire department's Freaky 5K.
okay.
Cool.
No further questions?
All right. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve
Second.
from Councilwoman
Second.
Souza, seconded by Councilman Morado. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morado.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
And Council President Brito.
Aye. Thank you, sir.
Thank
you.
All set. Moving right along in communication, we have a presentation at this point in time. I'm not exactly sure how long this presentation is, but council members have anything before we go into the presentation? Do they have anything that they want to bring forward that very quickly and that they would like to have handled? Want to do the appointment first?
Yeah, sure. That's a good idea.
Okay.
Mr. President, may I move to move up the appointment for vote for the presentation?
Sure, I have no objections. Does any other council person have any objections to moving up
None.
an appointment at this point in time?
No.
Okay. Councilman Cahoon, please proceed.
We don't need to second or vote on that? We're okay?
It's a
All right,
majority.
okay. I'm going off the school committee rules. All right, so the appointment that we have here is to the Economic Development Commission. For clarity, this is a mayoral appointment or a mayoral nomination, or however it reads in the ordinance, with council approval. The mayor has indicated that this is the appointment that he would like to make, and I am bringing it forward to the council to recommend their approval. I am recommending Mrs. Melissa Spur, who's with us tonight. Melissa, where are you? I saw you. There she is. To join the Economic Development Commission. I don't know, I think most of us know Melissa and her husband Jeremy and the fine work that they do in and around the community The experience that Melissa brings to the Economic Development Committee, or the Economic Development Commission, will be substantial. She will make an immediate impact with her understanding of municipal planning, branding, marketing, et cetera. She and Jeremy own their own marketing company and certainly understand a whole lot more about making the city look good than I do. So I think that's about all I have to say. So I would like to move for appointment or for approval of the mayor's appointment by the council of Ms. Melissa Spur to the Economic Development Commission.
So we do have a motion to approve for the approval of the appointment for the Economic Development Commission by Councilman Cahoon. Would anyone like to second that motion?
I'll second that motion.
All right, we have a seconded by Councilman Morado. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morado.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Very positive appointment for the city of East Providence. I'm glad to see this family step forward, and I vote aye.
Thank you. And Council President Brito.
Aye. Thank you. Congratulations. Moving right back to communications. Green LLC presentation on green energy credits. Welcome, Mr. Furtado.
Mr. President, tonight Green LLC is speaking at the request of the mayor. They've come forward with a proposal, but before we begin negotiations, and for the sake of transparency, Green will be sharing their proposal with you tonight so that you might be more informed about their organization and so that they can answer any questions or concerns that you may have. We already went through the RFP process, and I know last year, I believe they went through a similar presentation.
Okay. So just to remind the public and the council that this is not for a vote this evening. This is just a presentation that the Green LLC will be presenting to the city. Thank you, Mr. Furtado.
And from Green, we have Hannah Marini and Tara Panisi.
Hello. And which one are you now?
I'm sorry. I'm Hannah Marini. I'm from Green Development.
Okay.
Very excited to be here. Thank you to the mayor for having us give this informational meeting tonight. We responded to an RFP in 2018. We did a couple presentations last year. After being recommended by a review committee, we did a couple presentations to the city council at that point in time, and we're happy to be here again. I have personally been working in renewable energy in Rhode Island for 10 years, both in public and private sector. I came to Green Development right after this program came into law called remote net metering. And it essentially gives special entities like municipalities, so cities and towns, some quasi-publics, and nonprofits, it allows groups like that to get energy savings from renewable energy that's not on your roof or not directly attached to your buildings. And since that program passed, most cities and towns in Rhode Island have entered into a net metering credit agreement. And they've done that because it's a guaranteed savings at no upfront cost to you. So we take all of the risk that's associated with this. And if you sign up with us, you're guaranteed to save money. So a couple of things that we'd like to talk to you about tonight. We're not going to talk about ourselves a lot, but we would just like to talk about what distinguishes us from some of the other companies working in renewable energy in Rhode Island. We're going to talk about briefly what virtual net metering is kind of explain to you how it works, as it can be a kind of convoluted subject. We'll talk about our projects in Rhode Island, who receives power, so the different entities that we currently work with, and a little bit about our future pipeline and what could be available to you. And then we'll talk a little bit about our original proposal and the savings projections to the city. And this will be brief, I promise. So green development is we're a renewable energy developer in Rhode Island. We install wind, solar, hydro, and energy storage. But one of the things that really sets us apart, as this first pie chart on the left, you can see that we design, develop, finance, build, own, and operate our projects. Most other companies that are working in this space in Rhode Island would be one piece of that. We are a vertically integrated company, which means we always meet our deadlines, and we have a lot of control over our quality, the quality of our work. We have been a leader in the space. We were the first company to build projects under both versions of the National Grid, their contract programs, and we were the first company to build virtual net metering project in Rhode Island for municipalities. And right now, we deliver power to about 300 accounts through virtual net metering in Rhode Island. So before I go to the next slide, I would like to introduce Tara Panisi. She's our Director of Asset Management. So sometimes I kind of describe us, I'm in development, I kind of describe us as the bread to the sandwich. So I develop the projects, I work with the cities and towns and the landowners. Tara operates our projects and manages those assets to ensure quality control throughout the life of the project. And she's going to talk to you a little bit about how net metering really works from probably one of the most experienced people in the state on this subject matter.
Hi everybody, I'm Tara. Nice to meet you all. So I'd like to give a little background on myself. I've been working with renewable energy, managing renewable energy assets for about 11 years. So I've done this a long time, and one of the cool things in Rhode Island is when you don't have giant projects that sell to a big market, when we're building individual renewable assets, we qualify for certain programs just within the state of Rhode Island. One of the programs is you can sell directly, can you hear me? You can sell directly to the utility of National Grid. And the second program is what we call virtual net metering. And that is when you're not actually purchasing physical electricity, you're purchasing a savings. And that's because the state wants to give certain incentives to create more electricity from renewable sources. So they want some incentive for programs to be involved in that. Because this is a savings, only certain entities qualify for those savings, such as municipalities and nonprofits. We have a majority of our off-takers of these net metering credits are different municipalities within the state. A good way to explain how this program works is if we compare a net metering credit, which sounds really complicated, but we can change that whole word to just a coupon. So if we use that analogy, imagine that you could buy a coupon book from a store. So you could buy your groceries. So you imagine you had a $10 grocery bill every week, but you could purchase a coupon book for $7. And you can still purchase that same $10 worth of groceries, except you're only going to pay $7 because you bought the coupon book from me, but you applied it to your food store, which is also in this situation National Grid. So we can switch it. So I like to use the analogy of a coupon book so that you understand you're not purchasing the physical power or the electricity. You're entering into a savings program that the state has created to provide incentives to both renewable energy developers, but also to different entities within the state that could really value those savings, such as different states, towns, and nonprofits. And that is why this program is not available for big corporations yet and so forth. We really want the people that benefit from these savings to be the people that deserve it. That's why we're proposing this for East Providence. So if we do the comparison, we change that coupon to be a net metering credit that's produced from my asset. So if I'm in this program, say I have a wind turbine, instead of producing electricity to National Grid creates credits for me to sell only to entities that adhere to the program. That's why we're proposing this to different municipalities within the state to provide a savings for your electricity usage. So it's the same as a grocery store. You really need to survive with that $10 worth of groceries. The use and the consumption of electricity in the town does not change, but the amount that you pay for it goes down because you're entering into the savings program. And that's really what virtual net metering is. It's a way for both developers of renewable entities and different organizations within the state that can really benefit from this program. They both are a win. So your overall bill for your electricity usage goes down because you're purchasing these credits from my wind turbines. And that's a basis of how it works in a simplified analogy setting. So this is where I kind of open it up for questions so I can provide more clarity. I want to see if that makes sense to you and if you understand it and if I can address any questions. Any questions of what virtual net metering is or how it works?
I have a few questions.
Yeah.
So I'm new to the council, and I do remember sitting in the audience last year. And I think it should be explained again for myself, other members of council, and the public as to what exactly this is. I just have a few
so this
questions.
is, and that's what this is. This is a savings program that benefits both renewable energy developers and also entities within the state that qualify for the program. So unless you're a nonprofit or a city or a town or a quasi-governmental entity, you can't even apply for these savings because they want the beneficiaries to be those that deserve it. So it's part of Rhode Island's program to grant you the opportunity to purchase your energy at a discounted rate by entering into the savings program.
So would this be like a solar panel?
No, so that's the best part about this. You're not purchasing physical electricity, you're purchasing a savings. So you're really entering into a program that the state provides, and they call that the net metering program. So you're not buying physical electricity. That still comes from National Grid. You're really buying a coupon for us that you can redeem with National Grid. So you buy your coupons from us at a discounted rate, and then you apply it to the utility at the same rate. And that's where the savings comes in. So you're always guaranteed a certain amount of savings. And that doesn't change no matter if rates go up or rates go down with your utility. You entered into a program with us, so that means that your coupons guarantees a certain amount of savings between what you pay for the coupons and what you redeem them at National Grid.
How long is the agreement?
Those are all up to negotiation. So once you agree to enter into negotiations to enter into the program, so you're telling me as a company, you're telling the utility, and you're telling the state, yes, I am interested in entering into this net metering program because I want the benefits for my city and town to reduce the amount that I'm paying overall in electricity. Then we enter into negotiations on the details of how much of a savings you might get or how long that might happen.
You mentioned there's already other communities in the state, correct?
Yes, a majority.
Can you just name a couple of them?
Yes, West Warwick, Portsmouth, Coventry, who else we have? Situate, Warren, and then we have a lot of nonprofits as well. The YMCA, a lot of housing development authorities. The only people that can enter into this program are municipalities or nonprofits.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, during the last presentation you had given here, there was questions about whether or not the school department was involved with this process. Are they involved with this time around?
So
Are they at the table
imagine
talking at this point in time, or is it primarily just the city in itself and not inclusive to the school department?
So I think the purpose of this is to inform you the most we can so that you understand exactly what the program is and that it's not specific to electricity and that it's really a savings program. The details of our negotiations would happen at a later time.
So at any point in time did you have any conversation with them then?
Yeah, so last summer, we actually did go meet with them a couple of times. These, whatever savings are negotiated will be available to all of the entities that were included in the original RFP, which included the school committee and the housing authority. But they will be signed contracts separately, as that way no group is held up if someone wants to move forward faster than the others.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Mr. President, if I may,
please.
I was actually part of the school committee when we had that presentation.
Yes, I remember.
And that was an informative presentation, and I thank you very much for explaining it in a way that we could all understand. I think the school department had a couple of key concerns that I think we would have to work through if we decide as a city that this is a way that we want to go. First, the school department maintains care and control of most of the city buildings by way of school buildings. So obviously they have a very real interest in what they're paying for energy costs.
Awesome.
Second, I think that the school department, maybe not just the committee, but the department as a whole, was concerned that maybe they were not involved in developing the requirements as they could have been when this went out for RFP. I'm not sure how to get around that other than going out for RFP again by way of, involving the school and developing the requirements. But I do know that was a concern from the school committee because I was on it. I do have a couple of questions, if I may.
Sure. Just if we want to just focus for myself just to answer your net metering questions, and then we actually do have a few more slides we'd like to present, so it's possible that Hannah may answer those questions for you. So if it's okay, we'd like to continue, and then we're going to open it up for questions
Sure,
again.
but I do have a question or two about net metering.
Yep,
so
go right ahead.
To explain it another way, essentially, National Grid would be subsidizing us as a municipality to invest in your enterprise, which is to find paths to renewable energy.
So technically, it's the state that's allowing them for this program, but really, we as a developer, so how it works is instead of being paid for electricity I put to the grid, the projects that are within this program, my payment comes in the form of net metering credits that I'm then allowed to sell to the entities that adhere to the program. So the reality is I'm subsidizing your savings.
And so by way of negotiation, should we come to a negotiation point, we'll use the coupon analogy again, right? So you come to us and we'll say, you're offering a $10 coupon a month for some fixed term, and we agree to purchase that $10 coupon per month for that fixed term for $7 each.
So it would really, I guess a more accurate way to put it is you're going to negotiate for a percentage of savings, which never changes. So just math is easy. In this case, it would be a 30% savings. So you have a $10 grocery bill, but you're only paying $7 for the grocery bill. So no matter what the grocery bill is, if it's $10, if it's $20, you're going to pay $17 instead of $20. The savings is always the same no matter what the rate is. So your savings stays the same no matter what. So you're negotiating your savings.
So what my question will almost certainly be if we get to that point is what sort of assurance do I have that $10 coupon that we're purchasing for $7, which might be a great deal in 2019, is going to still be a great deal in 2029 or this is an emerging market, right?
Yep.
No one really understands how, I talked about it before, and this, credit default swaps, everything else. I imagine net metering credits can be swapped and marketed and invested in just like anything else. So I think that's something that we'll want to understand, and certainly understand that there's always an inherent risk of maybe giving up a good deal down the road, but that's certainly something that I'm going to ask about when we get to that point.
And to help reassure you, what we're seeing is those that are delaying entering into these deals are not able to redeem them at a later date. There's only a certain amount of development that can happen in a small state, and this program is made that it's an incentivized program. So there is a very strong and a very realistic possibility that more years you put between entering into these deals, that will not be available for you in the future. Not that it will get better, that the opportunities will not be there. And every year that you withhold being a part of this program, your town is really missing out on that savings.
So I have one more question, but I'll hold it, because I know you want to go through the presentation.
Let me bring back Hannah. Thank you all.
Thank you. That was great. I understand it better now, too. So this is just an overview of projects that we've built to date around Rhode Island. We've worked in a lot of different towns, and we've actually built about 56 megawatts that are either fully operational or under construction as of 2019. And just for a point of reference, the city would need probably the city alone would need probably between 2 or 3 megawatts to satisfy the amount that you requested in the RFP. These are the different entities that we currently sell power to. We work with the Convention Center, the Bay Commission, various cities and towns, some housing authorities, and we do sell directly to National Grid as well. So we have a very strong, high-confidence pipeline of projects in the future as well. We develop wind and solar projects, and we look very closely at interconnection and permitting very early on. So we know that we have projects coming online at a certain date. Many of those are already actually through the local permitting process in their respective communities. So these were the original proposals that we gave to the city. Again, market conditions have changed slightly, and we would be willing to talk about these numbers in more detail during the negotiation process. But last year we estimated that the city alone could save about $275,000 in year one on electricity. And the discount rate that Tara was talking about that we originally offered was 31%. So that is a guaranteed discount rate. So if the National Grid rate goes up, if it goes down, that 31% remains the guaranteed savings from that credit rate that the city gets to keep to pay their bills with. Good. And that's all we have for tonight. We wanted to just give you an overview of the program, of the process, of our credentials, and we would like to get into more detailed discussions during the negotiation process as well.
Mr. President, just two questions. Earlier it was said, I think Mr. Furtado said, there's negotiations going on with the mayor's office, so at some point we'll get a report. So I assume there's an upfront cost from the city to start, or do we just go right into it?
There is no upfront cost to the city to enter into this.
Okay.
We pay for all of the development costs associated with the projects.
So it's like a Groupon.
Essentially, yes. We were wondering if we should use that as an analogy or not, but that was a good one. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have you discussed or covered whether or not it's going to be wind or solar at this point in time?
No. The credit is the same value no matter which program it's coming from. I know last year we were offering a mix of both, but it really depends on what timelines and priorities. But those are all things that we'd be happy to discuss.
Mm-hmm. And correct me if I'm wrong. Most of this is stored off-site somewhere else. The solar panels and the wind as well, the wind turbines. We won't have those here
Correct.
In the city. They will
yes,
be
all of the projects in our high confidence pipeline are located elsewhere, in Rhode Island communities, but in other locations.
Okay, thank you. Any other further questions at this time?
Mr. President, I'm not sure that this is a question for Hannah, but I'd like to put it out there, and maybe we can track this down. Would it be possible to get a copy of the solicitation or the RFP that brought in the proposals? I'd be very interested in knowing what the market looks like. This is a new market to me for sure. So I want to see what we got by way of proposals. I think that's got to factor into any kind of decision we make, and certainly any kind of negotiation that takes place. We've got to understand what the value is out there before we enter into that. Again, I will say, Hannah, this is not the second time I've seen you deliver this. It's very clear. I think we understand what we would be buying if we were to buy. I just want to understand what the competitors look like.
Sure. I think that's fair.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move right along. Next item on the docket is public comment. Madam Clerk.
First person is George Smith. Topic is comments and questions. George Smith.
2 weeks ago, you had a meeting here, special meeting about the water system and everything. Why was there no offer for public comment on it? I had a lot of questions.
No, we had public comment on it. In fact, people were calling in from Facebook.
Well, all I heard was like 3 or 4. Oh, we got questions on Facebook. We got questions on Facebook.
That was part of the public comment hearing.
All right. But no, at no time did I ever hear anyone say, well, this is open for public comment. All right. I left early. I'll admit, I didn't stay through the whole meeting. I left early. Oh. And I watched the rest of it on TV in the following week. At no time, I had all kinds of questions. All right.
Mr. Smith, I'd like to interject on that one. Just to let you know that there are 2 different ways or 3 different ways that you can go ahead and address the city council. One is if we have a public hearing and the questions were allowed during that time for the topic that you're discussing.
So what am I supposed to do? Wave my hands or jump up? Or?
You come up to the podium, sir.
All right. I didn't know that. That's something new. I always waited for any public comments.
I believe Council President Brito did announce that.
I'm almost sure I did, because we did have comments from people. If I'm not mistaken, there were only yourself and maybe 2 other people that were here at the time, and I had even addressed those people who are on social media.
I sat
that was
through
that was during that time of the public comment.
We got a question on Facebook. We got a question on Facebook, and that's all I heard. I never heard you once say, this is open for public comment. Do we have any questions from anyone? Okay. I followed it later in the week on TV and got in where just before I left, and at no time. I had all kinds of questions.
I'm actually happy to follow up with you, Mr. Smith, to let you know what time you could reference that at when Council President Brito did state that. I could go ahead and do that. I take care of all the note taking. I wish you would. If you can go ahead and leave all your contact information, I'd be happy to do that. But there's also public comment that's available. There's also a way that you can get on communication to address the council. So there are different ways that you can do that. But it was opened up during that time. I have the record of it.
I was under the idea that I waited for public comment. I could come up here and ask my questions.
Yeah.
I had all kinds of questions. None of it was addressed.
Well, just know in the future that that's definitely available to you. You have 3 different avenues that you can do that. And if you have questions, I'll go ahead and I'll give you my card. You can always sign up for it ahead of time. But the public comment sheet is always available at the end. We put it there about 6:15 or so, and I don't get it collected until we come out of executive session. So that's always available to you. I apologize if there was any kind of...
and now they're going to vote later on in this session about that, right? About the hookup?
Yes. This is emergency hookup.
Yeah.
You are aware of that, right?
Yeah, I still have a lot of questions on it.
Okay.
Believe me.
Mm-hmm.
That's it?
Is this vote we have this evening for a public hearing?
No, it's a vote, excuse me, I mean, you could obviously, if you wanted to open it up for public hearing, you could, but this is the final resolution picking the route that's been proposed, one of the 2 routes that's been proposed. I mean, he's here now. If he has questions or comments, he can certainly share them right now.
All right. I don't think anybody can answer it here, but when the city initially tied up with the Cross Bay connection, did they have a backup? And what was that backup?
You mean the original?
Yeah.
Back in the 60s?
Yeah.
Not that I'm aware of, no. That's why we're having a backup system now. We haven't had one in effect for that many years, and that's the emergency that we're facing at this point in time.
So we had no backup at all?
We had no backup.
All right.
There was discussion at one point in time with one of the other or previous council about tying into or tapping into the Pawtucket water system, but that never materialized. But that was the whole question, that was the whole concern that the city has always had going forward, was that in an event that there's emergency, that we have no backup.
And in the event that the water supply is shut off from the Situate Reservoir, will Pawtucket be able to supply us with enough water for us and Bristol County?
Well, I couldn't answer that question.
No, that's what I'm saying.
I will answer that question based upon the knowledge that I got from the public hearings. But my understanding, Council President, it was that the lines from Pawtucket, that there is a small interconnection, but it's not. It's really based upon the delivery lines. There's not enough.
Right.
There's not enough capacity in those lines for a trunk line that would be able to supply Pawtucket that water to the rest of the city.
And when Bristol County originally hooked up to the Situate Reservoir, their backup were wells in Barrington and the old Shad factory in Rehoboth. What happened to that? I know you can't tell me, but that was questions.
And that would have been the time to ask those questions. I don't know why at any point in time you felt that you could not speak, especially
I was waiting for public comment. Public comment, any questions? And all I heard is, oh, we got a question on Facebook. We got a question on
That was at the time it was open for public comment.
Hey. Well, I don't know. You're only taking them to Facebook as far as what I can
No
say.
one was here.
Hey.
Like I said, there was yourself, and I think other than the people who were making the
And there was
presentation,
another
maybe...
individual, but, you know, it wasn't...
And the other gentleman that was here had his discussion was something entirely different, if I'm not mistaken. But, there was only a couple of people that was here.
I know that, yeah.
But it was
Over
open.
such an important topic.
Yeah. But it was open, and I apologize if you feel that way, but it was open for public comment. And
Actually,
also you here as well.
clarification, we already have a interconnection 16-inch line between our water supply and Bristol County, not Pawtucket. But it's not sufficient right now to...
Well, Bristol County can't supply you with any water.
No, but there is a connection right now, but it's not sufficient to run, supply Bristol County. Let me finish for a second. To supply East Providence or Bristol County at the moment. So the idea is to put a sufficient line in case a catastrophic failure happens.
I realize that.
We'll have that secondary supply.
But that's just to benefit Bristol County.
It's going to benefit East Providence too. If our supply line...
Where are they going to get water from?
If our supply line has a catastrophic failure, it's going to supply and benefit East Providence as well. So that's the whole idea. It's a secondary source in case of an emergency.
Right.
And Pawtucket would be a phase down the road as another, option in case those two lines go down.
But there are so many other options and everything. Like I said, what happened to the Shad factory in the wells in Barrington?
Well,
I know the reason why we hooked up to the Situate Reservoir was the water quality out of the Turner Reservoir was very poor. All right? I didn't live in East Providence at the time, but I know the problems people went through. You couldn't wash your clothes, crying out loud. But that's 50 years ago. Has the water improved any better in the Turner Reservoir, where it could be possibly thought as a backup?
That's not a question for me to answer, but
but that's something to think here. And another thing, while we're on it now and everything, what's the story on the hydroelectric plant at Turner Reservoir? Is still in the process, or nobody knows? I know it's an off-the-wall question, all right.
Yeah. I don't have an answer for that question personally.
Thank you. I appreciate your honesty.
But part of us tapping into Bristol County water, as the councilman alluded to earlier, is that it's an emergency backup, and it's no cost to the city.
I believe there is a cost to the city.
If there's a cost that the city decides on, it's police detail.
Right. And how much is that going to be?
I'm not exactly sure.
No.
I mean, we're tapping into, we're getting, emergency water system brought into the city for free. I don't think you can wait or two.
It more than likely has to be done and everything. But
Oh, it has to be done. It's
Yeah.
not more than likely. It has to be done.
Cahoon's ward, all right? Try moving up Pawtucket Avenue at 8:30 in the morning. It was a disaster this morning, all right? And it's going to be worse with the construction.
Yeah,
Thank you for-
you're welcome.
All right.
Council, next item, please.
Next for public comment is Jason Rafferty, Wire Drop, Riverside Square.
Hello, I'm Jason Rafferty. I'm the director of the Riverside Renaissance Movement. For those of you who don't know, we are a local organization down in Riverside, the neighborhood of Riverside, that does a lot of local empowerment, advocacy, and beautification. There's two items on the agenda tonight that we just wanted to briefly just make a comment on. The first one is the wire drop being sponsored by Councilman Morato, which is essentially bringing power down to the level of being able to use it in Riverside Square. This is an important project, I think, for future use of the square. Use of the square is something that we've been talking about for a long time. It holds a lot of benefits in terms of being able to block off Pawtucket Avenue and being able to, whether it be a food truck festival, a small business festival, or other things like that, concerts, utilizing the space of Riverside Square as a gathering space and a potential sort of performance space. But even more than that, it's the location of our tree lighting. So every year, the Riverside Renaissance Movement has put on, for the past 2 years, has put on a tree lighting. The first year, we anticipated 50 people, and 75 people showed up. We all crowded into Borealis and made ornaments and then lit, at that time, it was a relatively small tree out in the patio area of Borealis. But last year, we figured we had 75, we counted on 100, and we had 200 people show up. So we started to spill outside of Borealis, and now we've just realized that there's a lot more potential in terms of what we can bring to the square and what we can do there. And so this event in particular could definitely benefit from having power supplied to it in order to really sort of bring in performers, bring in help with the lights, everything that really makes this a wonderful event. So I really want to speak in favor of that. The other thing on the agenda I just want to really briefly just touch on is I know tonight there's going to be an update from the Waterfront Commission. The Riverside Renaissance Movement has historically been outspoken in terms of advocating for our community with some of the planning that the Waterfront Commission has done. I spoke twice last year to the council, and I've also attended a Waterfront Commission meeting where I spoke out in terms of public comment. We really support the vision and the purpose of the Waterfront Commission in terms of fostering a sort of community-minded development, promoting job growth, environmental security, and also access to the waterfront. But we do have some concerns based on some of the history of the development there. First, one of them is the drastic changing nature and atmosphere of the Riverside waterfront. This includes some of the businesses that are coming in that may be very exclusive to certain populations, whether it's certain patient populations or whether it's certain residential populations. We're concerned about this, in terms of the waterfront being developed at 100% market rate and luxury housing, effectively excluding the rest of the community from the amenities of living on the waterfront. And we also, last year, a big topic that we spoke about was the in lieu fees that were sort of helping, essentially were in place of affordable housing requirements on the waterfront. And our concern is that they weren't sufficient to build affordable housing elsewhere, meaning that the city, it required significant leverage in terms of subsidies from the city in order to be able to build housing. And that really dips into funds, critical funds that we need for other community projects. We know that our budget's tight, and it's something that I think needs to be brought into consideration. And then finally, the third thing is that a concern that we have is undermining some really important aspirations. The first of mixed income housing to create wealth through locating affordable housing in areas of high property value, providing access to equity and growth. And the other is in terms of employment, creating employment opportunities that are applicable to the people of East Providence. And part of that is also thinking about training, and retraining our workforce in this city in terms of some of the jobs that we're bringing in and bringing in jobs that meet the workforce. So sort of that goes two ways. Overall, I think, like I said, we really encourage economic development. We see the importance of that. We look at our waterfront as a really sort of limited and important resource in our city, but what we're asking for is more transparency and more involvement of the communities that end up being affected by some of this development.
Thank you, Mr. Rafferty. Next public comment, please, if there's any.
There's one more.
One more.
K. Eric Crook, Wire Drop and Waterfront Commission.
We're out in force tonight, folks. I'd like to reiterate one of the things that Jason just pointed out and speak on behalf of Ricardo's proposal for the wire drop, rather. But maybe I don't have to explain that to you, because at the tree lighting this holiday season, half the members of the council were there in attendance, and a number of people in this audience. And in fact, I thought the mayor was here before. He was also there. I think it's a growing event. I think it's a very important event. And I think I'd like to approach this issue from another standpoint. When you look at community development and community pride, and when you look at an item in which the expenditure, I believe it's about $2,000, is what I believe you're looking to budget, is relatively small, the impact in terms of improving pride of place in the community becomes immeasurable. These are the type of expenditures that the board should really enjoy having the opportunity to support, because these are the ways that you show the community, and the community shows themselves, that this is a place that they love to be. Now, I don't want to speak at great length about the Waterfront Commission, because Jason already made a number of comments, and because Bill Fazoli is speaking this evening, and he and I were fortunate enough to have a meeting a couple of days ago. I want to state, of course, since you probably know, I'm a member of the Planning Board. I'm also the Deputy Director over at Riverside Renaissance. And by merit of the fact that I happen to have a master's degree in planning, I worked for the MTA in New York. I also worked with the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. So when the issues came up and the Planning Board and these revisions were presented, I was the sole person to vote against them, because I said, well, I think there are some additions here that are valuable and important, but I said, but if you're going to do this, you're not going far enough. If the opportunity is there to make the organization more responsive to the community, and also to put together a structure that works more effectively, well, then this is the time to do it. Don't make these changes in a piecemeal fashion. Also because we're looking at a city, our city, that's just gone through decades and decades, I think it's 66 years, of a councilmanic form of government, right? And we're now moving into a situation in which we have a strong mayor, and I think also, if you embrace your opportunity, a strong council, right? And I think that this is one of the reasons that why when I talked to Bill about the language that's in your documentation. And by the way, I want to back up 1 second.
Yes. Just so I don't mean to interrupt you, but it is public comment, and there is a 3-minute limit. So if you can just keep it.
I will do that.
I don't want to really push the 3 minutes. We'll be more than happy to give you a little more, but just keep in mind that it is a 3-minute limit.
All right, I'll do that. I did want to thank Diane Feather for having set up the meeting, and Pam Sherrill for also attending. Right? I thought it was a very, very productive discussion. I'm dying to hear what Bill has to say in that regard. And what my emphasis was, and I think it's the thing to think about, is it's not about the people in the room. It's about the structure of government and how you make things work effectively, where your role is advice and consent, and the mayor's role is to make appointments. If you look at the structure of the document now, the mayor makes one appointment. You make, I believe it's 5 other appointments. You would have a more effective environment if you had advice and consent on every appointment. All right? So I'll leave it with that because I'm sure Bill's going to have plenty to say in that regard. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes public comment?
Yes, it does.
Thank you, sir. Moving right along to the next item, please.
Okay, that would be Council Member Communications, Waterfront Commission discussions, status and project updates. Council Vice President Bob Broderick with Bill Fazioli, Chairman of the Waterfront Commission.
There you go, Mr. Fazioli.
Mr. President, I want to thank you when I asked you for your support to put this on the agenda, and you gave that to this evening. By way of introduction, one of the most important things that has occurred in the city of East Providence recently, and will continue to do so for our children and grandchildren, is the use of our waterfront. The Waterfront Commission has a big task, and they've done a great job. And more importantly than buildings and bricks and mortar and water in East Providence are its people. And led by Mr. Bill Fazioli, who is its chairman. He was also a former city manager in East Providence and has volunteered in countless other areas. This is a resource in the human form that we really need to rely on. And I know he hears from all different angles. And sorry, Mr. Fazioli, for making you sit here tonight, and hopefully this will all go well. And I'm kidding. I'm not sorry. I want to thank you for coming out. So with that, I want to thank you and present Chairman of the Waterfront Commission, Bill Fazioli.
Sure, thank you. And it's really a pleasure to be here to have I have some prepared remarks, but I really hope to make it a dialogue with the City Council, and even if the public has questions, I'm happy to entertain those. But again, I'm not here to give a history of the Waterfront Commissioner, and I'm not doing a PowerPoint. It's just really to talk about status and update, and talk about some of the things that are taking place, and maybe clear the air on some of our process. Along with me is Pam Terrell, who's our Executive Director, will help me out as some questions come up. But the good news is that East Providence is in a position to prosper. The work of the Commission, the City Council, and City staff over the past 15 years has produced real results. Formerly abandoned and underutilized property have been remediated and redeveloped to expand the city's tax base, increase employment opportunities, provide housing, and provide access to the city's waterfront, which was previously never existent. All of these properties were privately held, and some were extremely environmentally contaminated, but now they host high-tech manufacturing companies, new homes, medical office buildings, and even public parks and public access. In addition, it's had immediate impact on the city in providing permit revenue fees in excess of well over $1 million and recurring revenues in terms of new taxes. The process has taken time, and we admit that. It's been a process that's been long drawn since we were established in 2004. We had some economic dislocation to deal with right in the middle of that. But we wanted to ensure that the projects that were being developed and proposed for the waterfront were sustainable. And I was discussing it with Councilman Souza last week. She used a great term, that projects that could take root in the city and really were become really high-end, high-quality developments. And you know, these companies that have moved in and have made home in the waterfront district really are community partners. You look at Top Pocket and what they do for the community. They host Watch the Mocha Days every year, and they make their facility available for community events. Ross Commons development, it was one of the first projects that developed. That led to the development of Rumford Center, and we can see what a vibrant place that is for the community to gather. Eaton Aerospace and Aspen Aerogels are very high-end, good, strong manufacturing jobs that are up in the northern part of the waterfront district, up by Phillipsdale. And they're both very strong community partners. Both support local schools through scholarships. They bring students in to see how they operate. And they hire quite a few, many city residents, and especially Aspen Aerogels. They are particularly known for hiring veterans because they have a defense contract connection. We feel that this organic incremental development is much better than sort of a centrally planned master development approach, because we feel that this incremental development is more adaptable to market trends and demographic changes that take place, and allows for the private sector to figure out what makes sense here, what really works, and that usually has better results in the long term. Some of the current projects that we're working on right now is the reworking of the Philipsdale Landing property up in Rumford. I don't know if you've been through there, but it's a very expansive property, very unique building structures. There's a new landlord owner that's been there for about 2 years now, Pam, and we had a tour there last summer. He's got a very interesting array of tenants, and he's investing a lot of money in that property. He's home to some fine art studios, furniture makers, blacksmiths, a bunch of, kids that went to RISD and now looking for that sort of studio art space that is working there. So we're very excited about his work that's going on there. Because of his input, we've made some revisions to our zoning amendments, which will come before you on the May 21st, that will make allowing businesses to go in there a lot smoother by streamlining the process and making them, less burdensome to come to us for variance or conditional use. Colonial Mills is a new company that's moving in from Pawtucket. They're a nationally known rug and fabric manufacturer. They're moving into one of the former Fran buildings up in Rumford. That'll bring in, I think, over 100 jobs. And I believe they're also working with the city's Economic Development Commission on some gap financing as well. The residences at Bowl Point, which is the old Hot Rod site at the end of 30 Veterans Memorial Parkway, was recently approved for new residences. The person behind that is an investor from Connecticut who is looking to put his money to work in Rhode Island. He saw the opportunity of that parcel being so close to Bowl Point, the proximity to Providence, on the bike path, to attract a younger, generation, someone who's looking to rent something that's maybe 600 to 900 square feet, and that doesn't necessarily have to have a car to live in. We had a public hearing. It went very well. The residents in the area were all very supportive of the work, and we'd like to see that abandoned, unutilized site being put back on the tax roll. Kettle Point is a facility, if you're not familiar with. Obviously, it's the townhome sales are going very well. The apartment rentals are in very strong demand. I believe they've got 3 buildings done. They're already planning buildings 4 and 5. There's very limited impact on the school-age population from what we can tell. I know that was a concern by the prior councils if this would attract a big influx of school-age children. We don't see that happening. The University Orthopedics building is a really signature building that's, again, they've become a really strong community partner where they're sponsoring community events. They're bringing new people into the city. And again, that Kettle Point project, although it's not complete, includes a new walking path in Squantum Woods, which walks right down to the bike path, which is now called the Urban Coastal Greenway. So there's about 900 signs down there that'll tell you. So you can find your way home. There's a special parking lot designated for bike path parking, and there's going to be, hopefully in another couple of months, a new pier that'll be open, a boardwalk, a renovated pier that'll be open to the public that allow people to fish off of and to use that in the warm season. And obviously the Bowl Point concert venue is becoming very, very successful. This year, if you looked at their schedule, they're having probably the busiest series of shows that they have. And what's fortunate with that is because they book with a national booking agent, we're tied into a national regional booking venue where people who would be playing in New York one night or Connecticut and then Boston and then up to Maine following, they stop at East Providence. So we're around that circuit. So we really have become sort of on that, we've sort of on the map now. If an artist is having a big tour, East Providence is the site where they're choosing to make sure they stop on. So we're very excited about that. And again, we know that Bow Point, that the concert venues, and we're very excited about the future of that, and their lease for the Bow Point expires this year, and we're hopeful that they look to East Providence for a permanent home sometime after this year. And we've been in discussions with them, and we're very hopeful that they're going to make a decision on their 2020 location sometime soon. But that has a recurring economic impact, and it also has a multiplier impact, not just on the facility, but the area businesses. And we've been talking recently, the gentleman who runs the Black Duck Tavern came in the other night, and he's expanding his business directly because of the influx of people he gets during the summer at Bow Point concerts. And then, so some of the future projects we're working on right now, the current projects we're working on right now that we hope will be in development stage over the next couple of years, or within the next 12 to 18 months. If you're familiar with the Chevron property across from the Metacomet on the Veterans Memorial Parkway, there's two parcels. They call them Parcel A and Parcel B. Those parcels are both fully remediated, and they've been permitted, actually, for development. They are being marketed right now to a developer. We hope that they'll be able to make some announcements relatively soon. They did come in to modify their plans last year, where they've switched their original design, which is mostly residential, to now include a lot more commercial use rather than residential. So we hope to see maybe more medical buildings, commercial office buildings, and possibly a hotel that would fit in with sort of a concert venue down there. They are coming in on Thursday with the full team to meet with us, involving this also with the city staff and the mayor's office, to begin their remediation on the Unical site, which is next to the Bold Point area and also near the South Key. We all know that the South Key is also known as the G&W property. That's actively being marketed to somebody who wants to develop it for a permitted use. Additionally, we're very excited about the Henderson Bridge project that was just announced by Senator Reed's office. We're actively involved in the design of that and giving our input to DOT. Pam and the planning staff have been very, very helpful to making sure that that highway, once it's completed, has a direct access onto Waterfront Drive, which will open up a substantial number of parcels that really undevelopable now will become very attractive pieces of property. Some are private and some are state-owned, and we're hoping to somehow get some control of the state-owned parcels as well, so we can make those developable. And we're all working very diligently to find a new way to get on and off 195. I was stuck in that traffic this morning. I left my house, and it took me about 35 minutes to get from, I live on off Lyon Avenue, about 4 blocks from Warren Avenue. It took me about 35 minutes just to get, and at that point I just turned around. So, but we all know that getting people in and out of East Providence is critical if we're going to expand the waterfront. So we're working very closely with the city staff. We understand that there's so money left over from a prior federal earmark that is available for the city for that project. DOT indicated that they would be willing to provide some funding for that. We're also asking our partners, corporate partners who are looking to develop, to contribute into a P3 or public-private partnership to help pay for those off and on ramps onto 195. And in closing, the city really has a lot of things going for it. We're on strong fiscal footing now. Our permitting process, and the reason why the Waterfront Commission was set up, was because of the permitting process is rather expedited, and it's flexible and very responsive to the developers, and they like that. But we're not a rubber stamp. We hold the developers to a very high standard in terms of what we want to see developed, and we're looking out for the best interest for the city. One of the things that I always like to point out is that the property we're talking about that runs from Phillipsdale down to Squantum Woods, essentially, is the waterfront. It's mostly privately owned. It's not publicly owned. It's not state-owned. It's not city-owned. So we have to work very closely with the developers to make sure what they're proposing is in line with what we want to see there. And for the most part, they've been very cooperative. And we really adopt policy, but the actual work is done at the staff level, and that's where Pam comes in, Diane, and a number of the people of planning staff. Pam, even though she's an employee of the Waterfront Commission and not a city employee, works very, very closely with the city staff. All of our projects that we get permitted go under extensive review by city planning, public works, engineering, police, and fire. So we're very in close step with the city's process. We're not, even though we're a separate agency set away from the city, we work very closely with city staff, and now with the mayor's office, we certainly keep the lines of communication very open with him as well as far as development efforts, so we could work together. We receive no state funding. We receive no city funding. We're funded largely by development fees and some rental income we get from the Eaton Corporation. We have put a request in this year to restart receiving some state funding through the legislative process. We're working with our senators and representatives to perhaps get us an appropriation from the state budget. Just from comparison purposes, the 195 Commission, which oversees the development downtown, their state funding level is well over $2 million. We're asking for $50,000 to help, provide for staffing and additional legal expenses and maybe some consultants. And really, it's the dedicated work of the commission members. Some of the here tonight, Mr. Lawson and Mr. Moore, and obviously Pam's work. She's on the books for 20 hours a week, but she puts in much more than that, believe me. There's more work to be done, and we look forward to working with the city council, the residents, and to continue on with this development and to make sure that the vision that we see here, the opportunity that is before us, as others have pointed out, is realized. And the city can take advantage of that waterfront and sort of reinvent itself, establish, sort of go against the trends of losing population and a lower labor force and economic stagnation. We think development is good. That helps everybody. You get to a point where certain cities where there's disinvestment and decline to the point where nobody wants to invest any money, and we're not anywhere near that. We don't want to be anywhere. We don't want to approach that at all. So we're very fortunate that the city has this asset, and we believe it's being wisely utilized. So at that point, again, I didn't want to get into a whole big presentation, but I'm happy to answer questions for myself or Pam, either from the council or the public.
I can start, Mr. President,
please,
if you don't mind. Mr. Fazioli, thank you for the presentation. Thank you for that comprehensive review of everything that's going on. I think we all kind of have a rough idea of what's happening with the Waterfront Commission, and we certainly appreciate you passing that on to us. Can we talk a little bit about city incentives, tax credits, tax subsidies with regard to the various development efforts that are taking place within the Waterfront District? To what extent have those programs been subsidized or provided with city credits or things like that?
Sure, that's a great question. It comes up a lot. We provide no subsidies or credits or tax agreements. First of all, it's not within our authority to do that in our enabling legislation. I think if we tried to do that, we would, we run afoul. That's clearly not in our scope of responsibilities. And from what I understand, there are no tax agreements, stabilization agreements, tax incentives or agreements between the city and any of the developments taking place in the waterfront. If that was to occur, it would have to be something passed by the city council. There was a tax increment financing plan that was to support the public infrastructure improvements to Kettle Point. That's not a tax break. 100% of those taxes are being paid by the owners. They're fully assessed. They're not paying any less money than they're supposed to. This is that a portion of their taxes are going to fund the bonds to pay for the public infrastructure there. The only other way to put public roads and water and sewer there was the city to issue bonds and pay, general obligation taxes on behalf of those bonds. The way that the financing was put in, that those bonds are secured just by the taxes within that district. So there are no subsidies or tax credits or deals at all within the waterfront. We're very proud to say that, and frankly, people just don't come and ask for those from us.
And the use of TIF financing is something that's fairly commonly done throughout the...
It is. It's been used quite a bit throughout the country for years, 50 years, I wouldn't say hundreds of years, probably 50 years. Started out in California primarily. You can, and for anybody who does any research, you can find 10 terrible examples of TIFs that going wrong, and you can find 10 great examples how TIFs are perfect, and they perform very well. Fortunately, my background is in municipal finance and public finance. I structure and arrange TIFs for clients, in New England. There's certain ways to put them in place and make sure that they perform and there's no exposure to the city those are all in place here. So the Kettle Point TIF that was issued, I believe, in 2010 or 2011 is performing very well, and the revenues are exceeding projections very, very well. So those bonds are very, very fully secured.
You spoke earlier about the interaction that goes on between the Waterfront Commission, the Planning Department, for sure, sort of that back and forth, keeping the city apprised of changes, getting guidance and direction from the city as to, how the city wants things to go. Can you talk a little bit about how, when there are changes, when there are new developments on the horizon, how are city's decision makers made aware, and the public generally made aware that those things are going on?
Sure, that's a great question. I'll start, and I'll let Pam turn it over because she's the one that actually does all the work. But she sits right in the planning department, so it's kind of hard for her to hide. So if a developer comes in and wants to talk about it, they've got to walk by the rest of the city planning staff. So we can't keep it a secret even if we wanted to. But not that we want to, but it's a very close-knit relationship, and I'll ask Diane if she would like to come up and comment about that. But every one of our projects that comes in for review is subject to city review, just like any other project that comes in. But Pam, if you want to maybe talk about how you handle that process.
Sure. I really try to involve the relevant department heads or people, whether it's Steve Kutu, Eric Skadberg, Ed Pimentel sat in a first interview yesterday, or first meeting about a potential project. So I really try to bring in who are the important people. For the Black Duck, I felt the police were also important, and so we had their feedback as well. Just yesterday, the mayor came down to speak to Diane and myself about some of the different projects that are going on. So I think there is a lot of transparency regarding how we work with the mayor. I always copy Diane on any issues or any potential projects. I probably flood her in basket with all of these communications. Monthly, I provide a director's report to Bill that I also give to Diane, so that she's very much aware of everything that we do. So. And
actually, we have a design review subcommittee of the Waterfront Commission, and there are city staff by statute who are on that committee, the Public Works Director, the Planning Director, and obviously we bring them in as soon as a project comes in. So they're actually on a subcommittee of this. They're voting members of that subcommittee, where they have direct input and yay or nay votes on a project, on how it's being proposed and how it's being designed.
If I can speak to Dr. Rafferty's concern that he raised with regard to transparency. I do know that the Waterfront Commission holds public meetings to some extent. I imagine that there are some meetings that, or some things that have to take place that, maybe not necessarily be public. With regard to transparency issues or transparency concerns, what are your thoughts on what can be done to increase that? Or
Sure. All of our meetings are advertised with the Secretary of State. I believe Samantha City Clerk gets a copy of our meeting notices. They're posted in the City Hall chamber here. So we follow the rules as far as open meetings law. In the 15 years that I've been involved in the city, East Providence, whatever, we've never had an executive session. We've never had a closed meeting. All of our meetings are open. Rarely do people come, and if they do come, we give them an opportunity to talk, because we frankly want to know why they're there, just because they might be lost, So, because we do, not to be facetious, but we do feel we could do a better job with the community outreach. So when I did hear of some objections to our commission, I did meet and have coffee with Mr. Cook the other day, the other day, and we spent over an hour and a half, and I agreed to meet with the full Riverside group to talk about what some of their concerns are and issues are. Because, reasonable people will disagree on issues. Affordable housing is an issue that we're all wrestling with. It's a complicated issue. I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all solution. We take the affordable housing issue very, very seriously. We want to make sure that affordable housing is for owner-occupied units. The proposal in Kettle Point was for apartment units. We didn't think that was really how is anyone going to get any social mobility by living in an apartment, as opposed if they were able to live in an owner-occupied unit, there's some social mobility because there's equity being built up. So we've raised $1 million that we want to make available to a developer. who can develop affordable housing in the waterfront district or outside the waterfront district. We're actively looking for someone to do that. The affordable housing issue is not just a waterfront issue, it's a citywide issue. It's an issue that the city needs to examine, not just within the 300 acres of the waterfront district, but around the city. And we work very closely with the Community Development Office within the Planning Office to make sure that they're aware and the low-income developers are aware of this funding, that we could provide gap financing to help build those owner-occupied units.
May I just ask one more question, if I might? I'm sorry, Mr. President.
No, please.
As you work through those community sessions, those various, outreach, if you will, could you let the council know, in particular, I definitely would like to attend some of those. I mean, a lot of this stuff is happening in Ward 3. So I think it's important that, I have the opportunity to ask questions too, or communicate questions from constituents who may not be able to attend.
Yeah, and I invite any council member who wants me to come to a neighborhood meeting or a ward meeting. I'm happy to do that, and to, again, talk about, again, I want to get a history lesson, why we were created or how we were enacted and all of that. That way I can certainly get into that, and there certainly could be improvements to our legislation. We don't have full-time legal staff. We try to minimize our legal expenses, but we're happy to take in feedback and try to, be responsive as possible.
I'd also like to add that when an applicant comes in, I encourage them to contact the ward councilman, just so that they can be responsive to any questions from the neighborhood. So Councilman Souza, I've done that, Councilman Brito. As things come up in your various wards, I definitely encourage them to contact, the local people, so that there are no problems. We are very concerned about having, a quorum at an unofficial meeting. So all our meetings are publicly noticed in accordance with the open meetings law. They're all the third Thursday of the month. So that's when a meeting would be held. There wouldn't be any other off-session type meetings.
Yeah, and the funny part is, even though I know the commission members, we're friendly in terms of we rarely talk about waterfront commission business outside of the meeting. There's none of those conversations taking place. We talk about much other, interesting things, but we rarely come to a meeting with the foregone conclusion about how anyone's going to vote or any of that stuff. That's never been the place. Everything we decide on is on the merits at the moment based on the evidence before us. It gets a little awkward sometimes because we're trying to figure out where everyone is at the end of the day, but usually we get to a consensus. The affordable housing issue was a rather contentious issue, which took 4 meetings to resolve, so it wasn't something that we took on lightly. But we're still committed to developing policies and procedures and a funding mechanism to make affordable housing a reality, not just in the waterfront district, but also within the entire city.
So my concern is, I'm sorry, if I may, my concern as we go forward and decisions that come to the council, things that we're asked to vote on, whether it be zoning changes or what have you, my concern is maintaining that balance. I think we all want to see East Providence continue to thrive in terms of development. We all want to continue to invite developers and businesses to come in. And I think at the same time, we want to make sure that, folks that have been here for years and maybe decades, have the opportunity to stay here and aren't priced out of their homes because there's so much history and tradition and knowledge and everything else that comes with, that's part of what makes the city what it is. So, I think that's kind of what we're going to what I'm going to be looking to balance as we make decisions. So anything that you can do to help me do that, I think would be appreciated.
Yes, we anticipate having sometime over the summer some sort of an affordable housing workshop. We're going to be inviting people in from other cities and how they approach affordable housing. Pam's been in contact with Rhode Island Housing, who's provided us a lot of guidance. We hope to invite them in as well. And there's a lot of non-for-profit agencies that do a lot of work in that space. And we hope to do something to get various viewpoints about that subject. We'll certainly invite the council and the community at large. So.
If I could just add one thing about the affordable housing issue. Last summer, we circulated a draft affordable housing regs for review. We did have comments that came back. We realized that there were some issues that needed to be resolved. And one of those issues was that I tried to make the draft consistent with our zoning. And we realized that we needed to make some changes in the affordable housing component in it so that if an applicant wants in lieu funding, they have to apply for it right at the point of application and not up at the building permit stage after everyone has been, after the commission has acted in good faith with the applicant. So we have now we have revised our regs, and they will be before you at the next meeting for review. Once, hopefully, those changes are made, then I can go back and reassess the affordable housing regs. But really, as I tell applicants, my objective is to get units on the chart. I do not want money in the bank. I want families in homes. That's my goal.
So if I may, one of the, if you guys will remember last year, there was a developer that came and wanted to develop across the street from City Hall. And one of the major contingencies on even developing that project was having affordable housing funds. We had discussed when there was, as a council previously, because there was changes made at Kettle Point, that in lieu of would have been transferred potentially to that developer. As it sits, I have no idea what happened with that developer.
Yeah, that developer, unfortunately, that developer needed to secure other financing and other avenues, and it did not. Those funds are still available. I think they might come back.
Actually, they are in the fourth round of looking for funding for affordable housing.
So they're still,
Rhode Island Housing. It is still viable. They do have to come back to the Waterfront Commission to request that funding.
But that's a project that we would fully support. Because, again, those units were designed for owner-occupied units, we think would really be an important addition to the city's affordable housing stock. And that parcel is not even in the waterfront district, right?
Yes, it is.
Yes. So I guess it is. I guess so. Well, I guess it still is. But we're willing to support projects even outside the district to make sure the city maintains its goal of meeting the state standards for affordable housing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to just make one quick observation that with this private development that still public has access to, I think that's a key component to these developments that we have along the waterfront. Being able to, whether it's a bike path or people having access to these wharfs that are being built currently, I think that's a key component going forward to allow the public to continue having access to the waterfront.
Yeah, we agree 100%. That's one of our core principles. So the Kettle Point development is, because of the connection to Squantum Woods is a path where you can cut right through their property and you walk right by the townhouses right down to the bike path. They dedicated a parking lot just for the bike path parking. And this renovated pier, which we hope the city will be in a position to accept sometime this summer, will be a public amenity that never existed before. A lot of people, may have been walking on these properties over the last 50 years. They weren't doing it legally. They were probably risking themselves environmental harm because they were contaminated properties, and they may have thought that this was public access was always there. They were never allowed public access. So we're not regaining access. We're allowing access that never existed on a lot of these properties.
Yeah, and thank you for that. Any other?
Just a couple quick things. You've answered so many questions, so I don't have to ask any more. As an observation, I would say it's been very illuminating, I think, to the public to know that the Waterfront Commission not getting any money from the city, but you're working very closely with the city. I didn't know you had an actual staffer with the desk in this building. That's good. You can't hide, as you said, and the clerk wouldn't let it. So that's a good thing. And I did promise a resident I'd ask one question, and he couldn't make it. How far is the reach of the commission? As an example, he has a concern with, in the Sabin Point Park area, a fishing pier that he said, I haven't had a chance to go look at it yet, but he said needs repairs, needs work, and it's for public fishing. Is that something?
Yeah, no, our district ends pretty much at Squantum Woods.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and it starts at Phillipsdale, leading over Omega Pond, that area, so. We don't go past Squantum Woods, really.
Thanks.
But that definitely does need work.
Does, yeah.
Just
Any other
final-
further? I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Any other further questions from the council before we proceed? Or
I don't know if anyone in the public had a quick question.
Any public comment? I'm sure. Yeah, sure, step right on up.
Oh, yeah, I guess Diane wanted me to mention, anytime we have a public hearing, right, we have numerous ads advertising, and we also notify the abutters, so it's much like a zoning issue as well. So it's not like we're making decisions in a vacuum, so I think it's important that you say that, so.
Excuse me. Yeah, I did want to point that out, that anytime the Waterfront Commission, good evening.
Can you talk right into the mic, Ms. Feather, please?
Anytime the Waterfront Commission has a public hearing, there is a notice in the Post. Now, the City Council will be considering text amendments to Article 9 of zoning. It's the first time in 15 years you'll be seeing a chunk of zoning text amendments in that section. It's been working very well for 15 years, so we haven't had to go in and tweak it much, but as Bill said, over time, that, the markets change, technology changes, and Bill mentioned a tour to Phillipsdale this past summer. We took the tour and we realized that many of the uses that were taking place in Phillipsdale, if you looked at the use table for the waterfront districts, they were listed as a conditional use permit, so they would have to undergo an extra layer of review and hearing before the commission. And we all looked at each other and said, there are no nuisance elements to any of these uses. No smoke, no fumes, no traffic, nothing that you would be aware that these businesses were going on. So we looked at about 35 of them and are changing them in the current amendments that you'll be seeing on the 21st from a conditional use to permitted as of right. So that's an example of what you're going to be seeing. And an example of how we try to reach out to the public, and I'll say we because we do work very closely together, is that currently, if you look in the Post, we have to run 3 successive weeks of advertising. It's a large legal ad. We've had one in on May 2nd. The second one will be in on the 9th. The third will be in on the 16th, and those are all related to notifying people. The council will be considering amendments to Article 9, the waterfront zoning, on May 21st. So if you take a look at those, the 3 successive weeks, we've already had the second. You'll see one again this week. You'll see one again on the 16th. And that's one way we try to provide notice. And it's a pretty big block ad. And also, I don't know if Pam spoke about this, but just like the planning board on some of the actions that are before the Waterfront Commission, we send certified mail notice to everyone. For my board, it's usually a 200-foot radius. Pam does the same thing with hers. Sometimes we send out first-class mailings as well, because it seems like those are getting to people these days easier than the certified mail is. That's coming back to us. It's actually a bill in the General Assembly to allow us to send by first-class mail rather than the certified, because people are not at home to sign and collect for them, and so we're getting a lot returned. So that's an example of how we're hoping to reach out more by sending first-class mail notification explaining exactly what we're doing, the date of the hearing, and inviting people even before the date of the hearing to please come in, look at the plans, look at any text amendments, and talk to staff. And that's what we're there for. And Pam and I share a wall, so we can't get away from each other.
Mr. President, let me ask one quick question. Diane, with regard to those, when those notifications go out, like the 200-foot abutment notifications, would it be possible just to let the city council know, hey, a notification went out, just so we can help get the word out? I appreciate the fact that they're being delivered first class, et cetera, but just so we know, hey, look in your mailbox, this notification's coming your way. Would it be possible just to let us know?
Sure.
If I may just interject real quickly, I've noticed that in the past, as council members, they have notified you that if in an event that there is a development going in your area, I was notified in the case where Fram Building, at one point in time, they had a potential developer who was going there to develop. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I did mention that at a councilman meeting, and in addition to the certified mail going out, that, I mean, we were in touch about what exactly was going on, but I also went out there and, you know, canvassed the area to let people know as well. But, yeah, they do let us know.
Okay. I mean, I got great information about the Benny's project, and that was awesome. That was exactly what I'd be looking for.
Yeah, exactly.
So if we could,
And Councilman Cahoon, one of the things that we love to do, but this depends upon the, you know, the people that, you know, create the news articles, but we would really love to have news articles and have a news article in advance of anything that you're considering. Have, you know, maybe pictures or, you know, explanation of it, some quotes. We've been able to do that in the past. I think there was one on Benny's that this was coming, so that the public, you know, had a much greater chance of seeing that news article than perhaps they might the public notice the legal ad. So, you know, we try to generate press, and we certainly would be happy to personally, you know, notify you. And as Pam said, if you, you know, want to reach out to your constituents, we can provide you with any information, perhaps even 11 by 17 renderings or site plans that you might want to share.
that's great. Yeah, I very much would like to. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Moore, you have something to say real?
Thank you, and I certainly won't take much of your time. I just say it's an honor and a privilege to sit on the Waterfront Commission and serve the city of East Providence. I want to speak to a very good point that Councilwoman Souza brought up. That vote on affordable housing was extremely difficult for everyone, especially my chairman. And you made a very good point. There wasn't another project in the works that we felt that could create owner-occupied units for that, which would have created more affordable housing than would have been created there. We wouldn't have taken the payment in lieu. I don't believe. It was a very difficult vote. But that's why the payment in lieu option exists, and we have to use our determination. Sometimes there's going to be policy disagreements, but at the end of the day, we have to make the decisions that's right. And to the critics on us on that issue, I'd like to just say, we're not the enemy. We're your friends. And come to us. We may have to disagree, but at the end of the day, we all want what's best for this city and what's best for the residents of the city. So I thank you guys.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Mr. Rafferty, you have a couple of words to say?
Yeah, I wanted to say, first of all, we're not necessarily the critics. We do actually support economic development and a lot that's going on the waterfront. But, you know, I'm actually glad to hear that was a difficult decision, because I think for a lot of community members it was also difficult. But I really appreciated the presentation tonight, and I just wanted to really emphasize that. I really thought they spoke to some of the points that we brought up, whether it be, you know, affordable housing, TIFs, public access, and I really appreciated that you were able to bring some of that forward, and I appreciated some of the questions both by the council president and Nate really speaking to some of the things that we again brought up. So thank you, and I hope like this dialogue can continue, because I think this is really important in order to continue with positive development. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Closing, and just wanted to say when closing, we read a headline. We live in Rhode Island. We read a lot of negative headlines, right, about our economic prospects and losing population and low income growth and all of that fun stuff. East Providence has a chance to break out of that mold. We have the opportunity not to be characterize that and sort of like manage a slow decline. I don't want to be part of a city that's like that. I think we have a city that can certainly break out of that and be a vibrant community and be integrated in a larger regional economy because of the amenities we have, because of the attractions we're bringing in. I think the city's very, very capable of realizing that potential.
Thank you, Chairman.
I'd like to invite everyone to the May 16th Waterfront Commission meeting, where we'll have workshops on 2 projects that are at Kettle Point. We don't have applications yet, but this is the early eyes on 2 projects. So
And where would that meeting be held?
Upstairs, room 306.
Room 306.
On the 16th.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you.
With no further questions at this time at the council, I'm just going to ask, we have some city employees here, so I would like to make some requests that if at the pleasure of the council again, that if we can bump them up, to have them come up to speak on behalf of ordinance that are on the docket this evening. If anyone has any objections, please let me know.
No.
If not, if we could just bump them up, and let's start with, first and foremost, Bristol Water County. If we can have Mr. Kudo come up. This is on Mr. Roberts. I know this is continued business that you have on, so I'd like to move with that. And while Steve is up there, there's another ordinance up there about waste as well, the waste recycling. If we could just touch on that real quick while you're up. Good evening. Good evening. Mr. Roberts.
Early on, we had a couple of public workshops at the first one upstairs, and we were urged to act yesterday as opposed to delay this anymore. And I had said that I would keep this on the agenda. We then had another public session here at City Hall, about as widely advertised as you can do these days. There is no more coverage in the local statewide paper, Providence Journal. They just don't cover local things like that anymore. So we got it out there as much as possible. A lot of people evidently do watch the meetings. So we got the word out there, and we were at an emergency situation. So I don't think there's anyone, at least at this dais, that thinks we can afford to keep putting this off. So it's on the agenda tonight. I asked to keep it on as a vote tonight. We've discussed this in great detail. Mr. President, I don't know how you want to handle the vote, if there's all the comments council members want to make, but I know I'm prepared to move forward and vote tonight. I don't want to see residents in East Providence turn the faucet on someday and have no water, which is almost happening in Bristol, Barrington and Warren, the Bristol County Water Authority. They have a newer pipeline that is leaking. Theirs was built in 1998, ours in 1967. So we're on borrowed time. So I've got it on the agenda for a vote to move ahead or to not. And I don't know, Director Kudo, I would appreciate it if you would agree that this is a critical matter at this point in time, or not agree if I'm making too much of it.
No, you're absolutely right. It's definitely a critical project that needs to get done sooner rather than later. And then, obviously, with the situation that Bristol County is facing now, it makes it even more dire.
Yeah. Basically, we have two choices. We've talked about them at the two public hearings. We've researched them. So I think an eventual motion from one of us would be which option. I can just say now that I'm leaning towards alternative 2, which was, not tearing up all of Pawtucket Avenue again and going that road, and there were many, many reasons given why that is not a good idea. I also was in that traffic this morning, stuck, and I was in it trying to get back here later in the day. I mean, Pawtucket Avenue, streets in Rhode Island are a mess. It's not just in East Providence. I've seen them in the little towns and here. And that's why every bridge in Rhode Island is being fixed, and most of the streets, because they weren't for many years. So I'm not prepared to keep delaying anymore with this.
Neither am I at this point in time. We understand that there's some traffic buildup, especially first thing in the morning, but just keep in mind, I mean, we're going forward. Sometimes you have to take a step back in order to go forward. The concerns were early on, the infrastructure, roads aren't being paved, sidewalks aren't being taken care of. Well, now they are, so that's par for course. These things are going to happen from time to time. I'm prepared at this point in time for a vote. Do we?
Just for the record, I just wanted to go ahead and coordinate with anybody who's following along that it is under continued business, but if you also look under 14D, it's the resolution establishing a water transmission interconnection between the Bristol County Water Authority and the City of East Providence. This is sponsored by the entire council.
Okay.
And that is the vote.
So do we have any questions as to what all concerns with what alternate we're going to take at this point in time. I think we pretty much were all on the same page during the last workshop. So if anybody would like to put on the table at this point in time a motion, and we may proceed with a vote.
I'd like to make a motion that we vote on, can we just pick an option, or do you have to vote on the option first?
You have to pass the resolution that's written.
Okay, so I make a motion to pass the resolution as it's written.
Which is alternate two, sorry, which is alternate two.
So, Madam Clerk, would you like to just read the heading of the resolution, please?
Yes, the resolution is establishing a water transmission interconnection between the Bristol County Water Authority and the City of East Providence.
So, Mr. President, before I say anything on this, I'd just like to note, we've had a lot of discussion about this. I think we've all kind of come to the conclusion, or at least I sense that we've come to the conclusion that Alternative 2 is a better deal for the city than Alternative 1 is. And I say this realizing that Alternative 2 is going to tear up my backyard. Not literally, but, right up Dover Avenue, that's right through the heart of Ward 3. I think it's very important that, we make tough decisions when they have to be made. I think we understand that, and I say, I know I'm going to get calls, and I know there's going to be unhappy residents, right across the street from me, right around the corner. But the option to me of tearing up Pawtucket Avenue and exacerbating traffic for the entire city, to me, is just not a choice. So with that said, I would like to second Mr. Morato's motion.
Okay, so we do have a motion by Mr. Morato, seconded by Councilman Cahoon. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye. Thank you.
Just to reiterate, for anybody new to this issue, this is not costing the city of East Providence any money. The $4 to $5 million price tag is being borne by the Bristol County Water Authority. We will have to provide some police detail, direct traffic, make sure the schools are safe, small price to pay.
With that being said, Madam Clerk, I'd like to move right on to the next resolution that we have regarding the culvert project on Warren Avenue.
Okay, that would be the resolution authorizing additional funding associated with the Reddens River Warren Avenue Culvert Project. It is for the vote, and this is sponsored by Councilwoman Souza.
Councilwoman Souza, please.
So last meeting, I briefly mentioned about the culvert project and how this summer we would be starting it once we had made sure we had all our permitting in place, the water table was low enough that work could start to begin, and unfortunately, Mr. Kudo wasn't available at the time, but has since become available, and I did get an update from the mayor's office via Mr. Kudo's department on some of the updates. So if Mr. Kudo wants to touch briefly on why we're here tonight with this resolution, there were some funding changes that were associated with the project, all of which funds have been set aside for this, so there were no additional funds that needed to be sought after within the budget. These were funds that were already put aside in anticipation of some changes that may have needed to be made because of changing the route from our initial culvert project, which was solely in East Providence. The alternative that we had to go through was now Seekonk, so that entailed some different work, different permitting, and along with that came some additional expenses.
Yes, that's correct, Councilwoman. So I'm here before you tonight for a resolution just to increase the contract amount to J.H. Lynch. They're requesting a change order. And the majority of this work has actually already been done because it was done in an effort to obtain a final road opening permit through the town of Seekonk. There was quite a bit of engineering involved, some back and forth with the town of Seaconk's consulting engineer and the city's consulting engineer. There were some design changes associated with the work and resulting construction changes, in the amount shown here of $118,000 and $118,720. However, at this time, we have all permits in place, and J.H. Lynch is scheduled to begin this project on July 15th, which at that time, we anticipate it to be the low flow period. We've had a severely high groundwater season this year, but it's a 30-day construction period. That's through the DOT permit. So we had a coordination meeting actually today with DOT on this project, and we'll be meeting again with the town of Seekonk in the coming weeks for a pre-construction meeting to finalize final details. But again, all our permits are in place. It's just a matter of just getting them, with respect to final detour coordination and things like that. The culverts are constructed. They're sitting at Citra Precast. And we're just ready to go.
Very good. Councilwoman, would you like to form the resolution in a manner of a
motion?
A motion, please?
Yep. Before I do that, I just wanted to touch on one more thing while you're here, Steve.
Yes.
Thank you for being here tonight. There were also additional work in the State Street area that the city had contracted for 3-year remediation in terms of treating, removing, dredging, cleanup down Runs River. Has the city been in contact with those that company?
Yes, that company, and we provided a report last fall for the treatment that was done again. The company GZA that we've been working with has seen some improvement in the area, and they're now finalizing a pretty significant permit application to be submitted to DEM for what they're calling a stream restoration improvement to that area.
Okay. Can I be provided with that copy of that
yes.
information, please? Thank
Absolutely,
you.
yes.
And the falls, because I didn't receive that information either, and hence thought nothing had happened.
I'll provide it to the mayor's office, and he can provide it to all council members.
That'd be great. Appreciate that. All right. That being said, I thank you again, and I put on the table for a vote tonight a resolution authorizing additional funds associated with Runs River Warren Avenue Culvert Project for approval.
So we have a motion on the floor to approve the change order. Second. Councilwoman Souza, seconded by Councilman Rodriguez. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon?
Aye.
Councilman Morato?
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza? Aye. Council Vice President Rodriguez?
Aye.
And Council President Brito?
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to add to it. I know it says that there's a grant. That grant is pays for half this project.
Yeah.
So it's a significant grant from DEM.
Thank you. Don't go so quickly. We have one more ordinance up here. We'll get you.
I'm good.
We'll get you home on time before you turn into that
No
pumpkin.
worries.
So, if we can, Madam Clerk, move right on to the next item, please. Item B.
Yes. This is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute the solid waste and recycling services agreement between the Rhode Island Resource Recovery Corporation and the City of East Providence. This is for the vote and sponsored by Council President Brito.
So this agreement with the Rhode Island Recovery Resource is about to expire. So, Mr. Kudo, can you just explain the details of the expiration of the current terms that we have right now?
Yes. So Rhode Island Resource Recovery Corporation, which operates the one landfill throughout the state where all the municipalities bring solid waste, they enter into a contract agreement with all the communities. It's the same contract for everybody. They initially approached with a draft contract with kind of solid waste coordinators, DPW directors throughout the state. It's essentially the same contract that they've had in years past. They were actually looking to nickel and dime us a little bit by taking away some recycling incentives and some initial drafts. We fought to get that back to the city. It at least gives us, we average maybe $30,000 back from resource recovery on that. But the biggest thing is that they're holding the disposal price at $47 a ton, which we're currently paying for the next 2 subsequent years.
Thank you for that explanation.
Just so the council knows, I did review the contract with Steve. It is a contract that is being replicated in 38 other cities and towns. There was some negotiation that did occur between the DPW directors and other communities, and I think Steve was part of it as well. There's not really that many substantial changes to it, so I would recommend that you pass it so we could avoid getting a higher fee if it's not approved by the end of this month.
Mr. President, I would move the passage of the resolution as stated.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor by Councilman Rodrick to approve the resolution. Would anyone like to second that motion?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilman Cahoon. Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
And Council President Brito.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Steve.
If I may ask that we move up the ordinance for the library here, just to get the librarian out as well. Mike, will you approach the podium, please? Madam Clerk, would you mind just reading over the ordinance real quickly?
Yes, absolutely.
First passage.
There we go. First passage in ordinance and amendment of Chapter 13 of the revised ordinances of the City of East Providence, Rhode Island, 1998, as amended entitled Public Places. This is for the vote and sponsored by Council President Brito.
So when the librarian asked me whether or not I would be willing to put this on the docket, just for public information that we are not taking away any of the fees here. We're just trying to realign them with the rest of the state. So the fees itself are going to remain as is. However, what the librarians asking to do and what they do across all other municipalities is, as opposed to have the council direct the ordinance in an event that there's a change, as you see tonight, we have to go to first passage and second passage. The librarian is requesting that the trustee, as they do in other municipalities, handle this. So, Mike, if you would like to just go into a little bit of detail about this, please.
Well, I think the council president did a pretty good job there. That's more or less it. It's pretty unusual. I'm not aware of any municipality where the government, by ordinance, sets the library fines. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm just not aware of it. The appropriate authority for setting library policy is the Board of Trustees. So as the council president emphasized, this is not to eliminate the fines. It's not to redistribute where the fines go. They'll still be going to the general fund of the city. It's simply to make the process more efficient and in line with what goes on elsewhere in the state. And also, I think probably nationally, certainly it was that way in Massachusetts, where I come from, where the Board of Trustees sets the fines, the fee structure. As he mentioned, we have to go through a pretty laborious process if we want to adjust a fine. And that's about it. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
As a frequent payer of those fines, perfectly fine with, I mean, that makes sense, right? I mean, it doesn't make sense for us to be arguing over literally nickels and dimes every time a change needs to be made.
And again, this is first passage, so this will be coming up the next council meeting as well.
So I just have a question on this, and I understand the rationale, and that makes complete sense. But as it pertains to the ordinance, it's not directly saying where, it looks like this section is just completely being deleted out of the charter, out of the ordinance book, and it's not really redirecting it to the library council. Wouldn't it have been more appropriate to have it be authorized to the library trustees?
So in the absence of a specific authority, it would automatically default to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just for
We could certainly make that clarification if we wanted to in the second passage, add that, but that's generally what happens.
Because on first look, and I think, if I'm looking at it and thinking that, then I would imagine other residents might be looking at it and thinking that there's no fees, even though we've stated it. But it makes sense saying that it's being redirected to
So the Board of Trustees generally have control of what happens within the libraries and, the governance of the libraries, and this would be considered a governance issue. So in the absence of a statute that takes it out of their hands, by taking away the statute, we put it back into their hands.
Okay.
And we do have an ordinance on that as well, Chapter 13, under public buildings. So that's where the library trustees are essentially given the authority to run the library the way that they need to.
Are you able to disclose how much in fines Councilman Cahoon owes, or don't answer that?
I'm currently all clear. I'm paid up.
How about the rest
We'd
of the
like that
family,
in
though?
an ordinance form.
All good.
All good?
Resolution. Mr. President, I would move approval of the resolution that you have proposed.
Thank you, Councilman Rodrick. So we have a motion on the floor to approve the ordinance. Would anyone like to second? Seconded by Councilwoman Souza. Roll call vote. Madam Clerk, please.
Yes. Councilman Cahoon?
Aye.
Councilman Morato?
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza? Aye. Council Vice President Rodrick?
Aye.
And Council President Brito?
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
If we may continue. If we may continue from where we left off initially, back under council members, we're in item B,
Yes,
Rhode
we
Island
are.
Ethics Commission Training Code of Ethics.
Been a wild council meeting.
I'll be very quickly with this, to realign ourselves with the clerk's office, that through many conversations that I had with other council presidents, that I thought it would be good for the council and/or boards and commissions that we set up a date where the legal department from the boards from the Ethics Commission comes in. It could be anywhere we prefer for them to show up, but they will come here, City Hall or wherever it may be, and just to give a 45 minutes to an hour presentation on ethics codes and ethics on the Ethics Commission. So it's not something that I want to really discuss at this point in time, but just, keep it open-minded if going forward over the next several months, if this is something that you're interested in doing. I would also like to include not only the council members, but boards and commissions to this meeting as well. And again, it's a 45 minutes to an hour. They will come wherever it is that they need it, the attorney for the Ethics Commission, and it could be done right here in City Hall. Thank you. Next item, please.
Next item is City Council/Mayor Charter Provisions and Legal Interpretation. Councilman Cahoon.
So this is mine, and let me explain to you what I'm trying to get to, and then maybe we can talk through it a little bit and then move on. So at the last meeting, we discussed quite a bit about, requesting department heads for meetings, having folks available to speak to particular questions, issues, concerns, so that the council can do its business. I think that remains an outstanding question for us to resolve between the council and the mayor's office. I think we all have an interest in resolving that as quickly and agreeably as we can. I think that one of the things that I brought up, and I know I shared my thoughts with the council president with regard to, and I apologize because I'm going off kind of script here. I do not have my iPad or my email. I haven't had access to it for a couple of weeks. So anybody who's tried to reach me by email for the last couple of weeks hasn't worked. 401-465-3345. The concerns that I shared with regard to that memo was I had sort of a difference of opinion from what the solicitor had prepared. I did not read the charter the same way, and like I said, I shared those with the council president. One of my concerns was, is there a difference between the term inquiry and the term investigation? I think that the charter provides for two very different types of activities, or two very different types of questions from the council to members of the administrative service or executive branch of the city. So, given that that's the case, and given the fact that I've been able to sit down with the mayor, I've been able to discuss some of the mayor's concerns, and they seem valid to me. There's certainly a concern that we don't want people to be confused as to whom they report to. Certainly that is the mayor. At the same time, I think we do not want to be bereft of any information that we need to make the right decisions. Ultimately, we're making laws that the mayor and his staff are going to have to execute, so we don't want to be making crazy laws. And none of us have all of the expertise we need with regard to how to run a city to make those laws correctly. So along those lines, I'd like to propose the following. I think that probably what we need to sort of get a box around this and close this gap is something short of an ordinance, and is probably something short of a resolution. I think what we need is, much like we have our own council rules, I think what we need is something along the lines of a memorandum of agreement between the council and the mayor that indicates, these are the times that we're going to look for department heads or whatever personnel the mayor thinks is needed to answer the questions that we have. I think to the extent possible, it's a good idea for us to be able to provide those questions in advance. Certainly, we never want to give the impression of submarining somebody, and I don't think anyone is out to do that. But also for the purposes of effectiveness, it doesn't make any sense to have someone come up to the podium cold and have to answer questions that they don't have any idea what they're going to be. So I'd like to propose, that the council, and obviously this isn't for vote, but maybe we can talk through this and come up with a way of doing this. But, we can sit down and sort of list the things that we're looking for. We can sit down with the mayor and get an idea of the things that he's looking to avoid or the things that he's looking to communicate through the council meetings. And I think we can put that into a very simple document that we can have a fixed term on it. We can agree to sit down and take a look at it in a year, 2 years, what have you. Here's kind of the twist. I do think that for the purposes of putting this document together, I do think that we probably want to have legal counsel for both parties. I think it might be a good idea for the solicitor to advise the mayor with regard to legal issues pertaining to this matter. I think it might be a good idea for us to have a separate counsel specifically for this matter and for matters where the mayor and the council may have necessarily differing interests. I do not say that out of any, I'm not, pointing arrows at the solicitor. I think he does an excellent job in keeping us all informed and keeping us out of trouble. I just don't see any way for one attorney to represent two clients with differing interests, potentially. So that's my spiel. I'm going to get off my soapbox. If there's a way for us to kind of work through that in the coming meetings, I'm happy to work with any and all who want to, put together a draft of such an agreement, and we could pass it to the mayor. And as long as it takes, is as long as it takes. City's never been in this position before. The people, I think, very much want us to have checks and balances, but at the same time, I don't think that they want us to be, kind of constantly at each other. So that's that.
Any discussion at this time, or would you like?
Actually, most of my counterpoints will be in the next item. I don't know if I can just get into that. Or
You want to just segue into it, or you want to just continue right, and we can take both at this point. So if you want to, please take the floor.
All right, so I put this back on the docket because to me it's a big concern of mine as far as how myself as a council person and the rest of the council conduct our legislative duties. I put a couple of thoughts together, and I'd like to share it. I'd like to start off by saying that this is not a Ricardo Morado issue. This is a council issue that I feel. I feel that this issue, this affects our ability to legislate and vet issues out properly in public, as it should be, in a transparent manner. When we vote on important issues, it is my opinion that it is crucial for a department head with the knowledge on the subject matter to be at that meeting. As I mentioned before, we need our department heads, which I consider to be our experts, to help counsel through the vetting process. As an example, and I keep using this example, the Benny's project, we heard from the developer that the plan they submitted was a great plan, and the neighborhood had no issues with the new plan, and that was great to hear from the developer. However, the developer's interest is to make a profit. Our interest as a council is to make certain that the plan proposed was the right fit for our community. And therefore, I was glad to hear from my planning director that night, Diane Feather, who did attend the meeting, and in fact reinforce that it was the right fit and everything had been vetted properly. And that was good to hear. I was glad to hear that. And by doing so, what was created that night was a record that if questioned down the road, let's say in whatever type of lawsuit, a neighbor has a complaint with whatever issue, encroachment or whatever, that at least we did our due diligence in knowing that we took the word of our planning director, our department head, that the process, the zoning, all the work that they did was properly done and brought to us for a vote. So that's another way of looking at it. So I understand what Councilman Cahoon is saying. I have no issue at all sending questions ahead of time. In fact, I like that. I welcome that. I want the department heads to know exactly what the questions that we're going to be asking. I want them to, in fact, come to us with more substance and not be, ambushed. All right, that's not the purpose. We're not here to berate the department heads. We're here to work through some of these legislative issues, like, for example, the water sewer abatements that I've been trying to work through for a while now. So I welcome the questions ahead of time. I think, like I said, I think they'll come back with more substance, more information, more information to answer questions that we may have had, and now they've been answered. And then again, we're working through the vetting process in public, as it should be. My only concern with, and I'll sit on that if you'd like, some type of memorandum. But my only concern is this. Right now, it's being cherry-picked as to which department heads are attending, okay? What's to say that there's a disagreement down the road and we're right back to the same situation? My feeling is that this should be fixed. It should be fixed for this council. We have a long 3.5 years to go. It should be fixed for the next council and every other council after that, years down the road, so that there's clear language, that there's no misinterpretation of that charter. In fact, I'll go as far as saying that we should consider looking into it or having a conversation as to putting this on the ballot in November for a vote. And I do agree with Mr. Marcello does a great job, but we should have our own counsel. In fact, I'll go as far as saying that the assistant solicitor should be a council appointment, so that when we have these disputes, that we have someone that represents the council. As I mentioned in the past, we had 20 municipalities that we asked if they had similar or different language as our charter in reference to department heads. Even those that have similar language, they all 20 of them allow department heads to attend meetings. The opinion that was given, I have a few questions on that. For example, some of the points that were brought up in, for example, in paragraph 1, that's not what I don't believe that's what I was asking, as far as the answers questions relating to administrative. We're not asking about the administrative function. That's not my job. My job is to do legislative function, ordinances. I don't care what the mayor does in administration. That's not my business. There's some things in here that weren't exactly what were asked, but the one common theme that I've been hearing for a while now, I'm being told as a councilman what I can't do, but I'm never told what I can do. And that's why I think it's important that we get down the road, this council and other councils get a solicitor that, will be a council appointment and works for the council. So again, I read that charter, I read that section 2-9, and as I said before, it's not clear. However, regardless of, if it was clear-cut language that you cannot contact department heads, I still can't, I don't understand how we can do our job without having to. So, and I have a sewer abatement ordinance I've been trying to work through, and I'm going to other municipalities to ask for their advice, because department heads are afraid to talk, or be inquiring. It's like they run away from us. They run away from me. I can't even inquire as to sewer rates or whatever I'm working on. I'm not directing them. I'm not ordering to go fill potholes or go change that, that water meter. We're simply inquiring. So that's where I stand on that.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other further discussion on this?
I do.
See Mr. Mayor is approaching the podium, Mr. President.
Council, I don't know if it would be proper form for me to come up.
I'll defer for now, but I do have some comments.
Listen, I just want to clear the air and set the record straight. First, I want to thank Councilman Cahoon for meeting with me and discussing the issue. And I welcome anybody to sit down with us and talk about this particular issue. The issue is not that we don't want to make our department heads available. As is demonstrated by what happened today, you had ordinances, you had resolutions, council people, department heads will be made available to answer the questions that you need in order to make decisions when it comes to ordinances and resolutions. It might not necessarily be that department head that has the best answer. All we're asking is that if there's particular questions or issues that the council has regarding operations, regarding a resolution, let's sit down together, and I'll make whatever department people you want to be available to sit down to help you craft your legislation. As it is, one of our staffers, we call him the council liaison and the policy person, spends most of his time during the day interacting with council members and helping to form and craft ordinances. His duty, he's paid out of our office, but his function pretty much is sitting down and helping to craft resolutions and ordinances and things of that nature, and working with the law department. So we are more than willing to sit down with anybody. As a matter of fact, I have standing meetings with Councilman Cahoon. He sits down with our finance department director to go over the budget. It's a very informative process that we sit down together, and I learn from it, he learns from it, and we sit down and we have a dialogue. We're not trying to kill dialogue. What we don't want to do is have a situation where a council person abuses their authority. Not that anybody here would, but I think you need to set the precedence for the future. You don't want to see a council person displeased with a particular department head utilizing their authority to demand that they come up before them every single council meeting because they want to put them on the spot or ask them questions and see if they can bend them to do what they want them to do. I'm not saying anybody here would do that. However, it's been demonstrated that it has occurred in the past. It was a disgrace to our city. We just need to make sure that we set a precedent going forward. And that's all we're looking to do. I mean, I don't think that we have not made people available. I think it's only fair that if there's questions of a department head that we know what it is you're looking to get at. So if you have a particular issue, hey, let's get together, let's work that, let's get those questions answered for you. There's a power line drop that's proposed for Riverside, which I think is a great idea. I went to that Christmas tree lighting. I think it was wonderful. However, when we look into it further, we find out that that's state property, and we need to get an easement from the state. It's going to cost us about $2,000. That's not big money. We'll find that money somewhere. It's not budgeted for. We'll find it. And we also need to tear up the sidewalk that's there. That's the new sidewalk. Bring the conduit underneath the ground, and then set up a little box situation that's going to be there forever. The decision was made by the councilman and whoever he met with. I find out afterwards that we have a memorial there, a World War II memorial, right in close proximity, with a power line drop already. There's already power there. And there's trees behind it that you can decorate, or you can add more trees to it. So, I mean, sometimes my concern is the buck ultimately is going to stop with me when it comes to the execution of state government, right? And you can hold me accountable, the public can hold me accountable if I'm not doing what's right by the public. The council, they call us, we act on it. The minute Councilman Morado called me one day, an email, I got at 6 in the morning. He wanted to take a tour of Grassy Plains Park, which I support wholeheartedly. I contacted my DPW director. I said, hey, let's take a ride down there. This is a huge interest to me. I'd love to see this park developed. I'd love to see something happen there. We went down there. We met with Councilman Morado. He had some members of the community. I thought it was a very productive meeting. We did some research. We found the original agreement that the city entered into to build that park. And we found out that it's good for both active and passive recreation, contrary to what a lot of people believe, that it's not usable for that type of stuff. But that's where working together as a team, we can get things done. What I really want to not see happen is a situation where department heads are being ordered in at the whim of a council person. It has to go through my department. It should go through the mayor's office, and we should be involved. It's the executive branch. Now, I've spoken to other people who served previously when there was a city manager. The city manager used to sit up there. I purposely don't sit up there for one particular reason. It's two branches of government. This is the legislative branch. I don't belong sitting up there with the legislative branch. We got the executive branch. Back when there was a city manager, you can correct me, Councilwoman Souza, Councilman Brittle, but whenever you wanted to call a department head up, the proper form was to go through the city manager. You used to ask the city manager, can we have so-and-so come up? Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Okay, that's all I'm asking for. I'm asking that if you're going to ask for one of my department heads to come up, that you need to contact the mayor's office, tell me what it's about, and we'll make them available. Now, I don't want to see my department heads having to come up for something that we can discuss and get the answer directly back and forth, having a phone conversation. I mean, my door's open to Councilman Morado to come in and talk to me anytime. But I just want you to know, whatever resolution you guys come up with, the idea that our solicitor cannot be impartial, I think it raises an issue. Here's the issue, I think. Now, let's say the council goes out and gets their own legal counsel, which that's up to you. You can do that. You get your own legal counsel, and then there's a dispute between the solicitor and your legal counsel. What's the remedy? This negotiation. Well, you can negotiate, or we can take it to court. I mean, the thing is, my thing is, the solicitor, he has disagreed with me. He's disagreed with me on numerous occasions. I mean, we don't come out here and tell you publicly, but he guides me. He's representing the city's best interest. His job is to give legal counsel to both the council and to the mayor's office. And he tells me what I can and can't do by the charter. And so I depend on him to give me that guidance. Mm-hmm. Look, I'm willing to sit down with every single one of you. I know I've had conversations with pretty much all of you to discuss us working together as a team. I want you to come to me with things, and we can work together with our department heads, with our staff, to get things done for you. That's the bottom line.
I'd like to make a few comments in regards to that. So first of all, yes, we have had many department heads rejected, okay, over the past few council meetings, so that is incorrect. In fact, we've had them rejected to the point where we don't even have the courtesy of being told they're not going to be here. When the docket item comes up, they're simply not here, so that is untrue. Second of all, that wire drop, you know, when I have ideas as a council person, and I can't speak for anyone else, I don't have to ask permission if, you know, should I proceed with this idea. However, this wire drop, I sent an email to your office. I was directed to Steve Kudo's office. Then I was directed from Steve Kudo back to your office.
That's correct.
So it wasn't done behind the mayor's back. Okay?
No, I'm not saying that.
That's how you made it sound.
That's not how I made it sound.
Let's clear the air.
We had no role in deciding where it was going to go.
Second
we
of
had
all,
no role.
The sewer abatement issue, the questions that were sent up the chain, back down the chain, that is a ridiculous way of doing business. We are not here, as we said, to berate the department heads. We are respectfully requesting them through the mayor's office. We are respectfully sending those questions ahead of time, but we're still getting denied. So I have to look out to other municipalities for advice on what do you guys do with this or what do you guys do with that, just to try to get some of this stuff, you know, moving forward. That's not the way it should be.
And I don't want this to be a debate, a tit-for-tat, but I will tell you that the questions that you asked, I had Mark Furtado watch the video because I was so concerned about getting you answers. I said, do me a favor, please go back and watch the city council video, get me every single question that he asked, and let's get him some answers. Let's get Kudo to get him some answers. So we didn't receive an email on that particular issue. And anybody who sent me an email, we communicate with you immediately as soon as we can get you the answers. So, look, I'm sure there's going to be growing pains with all of this. I welcome Councilman Morado to come and sit down with me and meet with me. We can talk with any department head you want to get the answers you want. I've had this conversation with other council people. Sometimes the mayor's office is involved in negotiations and doing things behind the scenes that could be jeopardized if we were to bring it forward and it's not ready to be brought forward. As far as negotiations, as far as the dealings we're having with trying to find a savings. Now, I wouldn't want to jeopardize an ongoing negotiation that I'm having by bringing it out here and then killing the potential of us finding savings. Now, I feel we've been more than transparent. We've gone out and we've got this new open gov that's going to make our budgeting process more transparent than it's ever been here in the city of East Providence. We've put on workshops to educate not only the public but the council. We asked, because we know that this was an issue that was important to the last council, we asked Green Energy to come in here specifically to give a presentation to the council before we even sat down to negotiate with them, because I want to get your temperature on whether or not you want to move forward. I'm not going to waste my time, negotiating with them if you don't feel it's right. So these are things that we're trying to do on our side. We're not trying to stonewall anybody. I understand that this is a charter that's new. It's a new form of government, and we're going to get to a good solution.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I feel like this is something that we're ultimately going to be able to resolve. Just like you say. I would like to say that in addition to being a new charter, it's also a flawed charter. I mean, there are provisions in there that contradict other provisions.
I agree with you.
Mike, I brought up one to you, that says that the council is distributing the work and that the mayor is distributing the work, and both can't happen. And I think any one of us reads it in context, understands that's the mayor's job, right?
Yeah.
Yet these things are still in the charter that we have to follow. So I think it's important for us to codify that relationship in some sort of memorandum, just so we can get past this and move on.
Listen, I'm willing to work with you on that, Councilman. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Sir.
Any further questions?
All I ask is that we send the questions ahead of time. We're not asking for the department heads at the last minute. We're asking them way in advance, as we have, and that we do have a department head. We don't care. We don't want every department head to sit here as in the past. But that's not what we're asking for.
But I think I've demonstrated,
like
just today's hearing and other hearings, whenever you have an issue that's to do with a resolution or an ordinance, they're here to testify.
Again, we can't cherry pick what we want, when we want to.
This is exactly the issue. We'll have to work it out, but this is the issue that we need to really iron out. Should the council be able to say every week, I want the police chief here every day, every council meeting? Should the council be able to say that? Or should the council go through the mayor's office and say, hey, I have this particular issue. I've got these questions. I'd like to ask this. Can you ask the chief to look into these issues? And then I'll talk to the chief and I'll say, Chief, Councilman Morado has these particular questions. Can you have your department person that you feel would be best able to answer those questions? Can you have that person present at the council meeting to give those answers? Just saying, hey, I want a department head here, that's not the way this form of government works.
Mr. Mayor, that's not what we're saying. You're making it sound like that's not what we're saying.
I'm confused then, and this is why we need to work it out.
We could, before we go any further with this, we can continue this conversation offline.
I agree.
Let's continue the dialogue so we have some sort of representation here that in the event that somebody wants a department head here for whatever reason it may be, we can have some dialogue as to what direction we're going to head in going forward.
Absolutely.
As to getting somebody here.
Absolutely, President. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. President, just to go back briefly, when I was going to comment, I agree with Councilman Cahoon. This should be easily solved. This is not it's not rocket science in the political world. I don't want department heads here, all department heads here, every meeting to just sit. But if we have an ordinance like tonight, Mr. Kudo was here, Diane Feather was here. If we're voting on something and we need information in a public hearing, we give them the questions ahead of time. I've always done that. They need to research the question, so they should have it. I think the idea, and I think that's what Mr. Morato is saying. I think it's got to be language in a agreement that can clarify this whole thing. I like the idea of a memorandum of agreement, just a rule. It doesn't have to be an ordinance. The solicitor thing, I would want to talk about a little more. I don't know if I want to see 2 city solicitors. How are we going to pay for the second one? I don't know if you have a plan for that, Nate, but how are we going to pay for a second one? And as another example, now tonight in executive session, and we'll have to go back there again, there's litigation against the city. The solicitor is there giving us advice. Now, would it be the mayor's solicitor or a new council solicitor that would deal with lawsuits against the city? We're involved in it as a council. We have to vote on which way we're going to go. So which solicitor, how many hats we're going to have in that room? And I don't think any of us wants to hire another one. Maybe on special interests, we could hire for that one interest a counselor if we get into some kind of a major dispute, which I'm going to do everything I can do to avoid. This should be fixed by some common sense government. It can easily be fixed, and if we have a request, it doesn't have to be maybe the department head. It might be the person that department head feels has the most knowledge in that issue. That's who I want here, and I've talked with each of the council persons about this. We've had coffee, Mr. Mayor. We've talked about it. And this can be solved. There are too many good things going on in the city now to have a headline tomorrow should be, in my mind, about the great presentation of the Waterfront Commission tonight and some other things. It'll probably be this, however. And that's what happens. So I like the idea of coming up with a rule or memorandum of agreement, and I think we should be able to call a department head if, for minor things. I'm not going to call Steve Kudo, and DPW is kind of the heart and soul of a city, so he gets a lot of these calls. But if a neighbor calls me or a resident and there's a major problem, we call the mayor's office, but say, Steve, what do you think about this? There's water bubbling up on my neighbor's street, what do you think's happening? Just a question. I don't have a problem with doing that. I don't think the mayor does, but we can work this out.
Councilman, I think too many attorneys have made a living off this city going forward, so that's a direction I really don't want to go into. But really, truly, offline, we have to come to some resolution, and it's a give and take. It's a give and take on both sides. So let's revisit this conversation offline. Let's come to some resolution. If not, and then we're going to have to just probably put some memorandum or something in writing going forward to see to it, whatever it may be, the direction that we all agree upon. But for now, let's keep this in the back of our minds. We got a heavy agenda still ahead of us at this point in time. I'd like to get out of here at a reasonable time. We can go on with this conversation literally for another half hour to 45 minutes, but to avoid that, let's keep this in mind, and going forward, let's think about what can we do to resolve these concerns that are addressed by both the councilman and the mayor. With that being said, any questions, Councilwoman?
No, I just had a question I'm actually asked the city solicitor to look into. I know we're 10 to the hour, and it'll be 10 o'clock. We're extending the council meeting. I know we have quite a bit, or maybe we can continue some of the items that aren't as immediate. It's up to the council. I don't know. I know we have some resolutions, and ordinances for second passage, first passage.
So if I'm not mistaken, at the 10 o'clock hour, we have to have a vote on 15 minutes increments. So let's see what we can do in 15 minutes, how much we can cover, and if we don't, and then I think the second option is we're going to have to resort at the councilwoman's request, either to take on the more important issues or defer everything to the next
So where are we
meeting?
now, down to?
We're still on council members. We're on to E right now.
Well, we just,
So, I mean, I don't know what the council would do to extend the meeting, but you do have the right to extend the meeting by 15-minute increments by a vote of four out of the 5 members. My recommendation at this point, given the hour, would be to at least pass those ordinances for second passage that have been on the
Yes.
agenda already.
Let's go, right, yes. If we can't go, if we can move right over to second passage of the ordinance that was passed the previous meeting.
Okay, we have the
Health
second.
and sanitation.
Yep, second passage and public hearing, an ordinance and amendment of Chapter 7 of the revised ordinances of the City of East Providence, Rhode Island, 1998, as amended, entitled Health and Sanitation. This is for the vote and sponsored by Councilwoman Souza.
So just very briefly, this has been brought up to the council and to the public for multiple times. This is in regards to taking away or phasing out within a 6-month time frame the use of plastic bags at retail or establishments. This is widespread and has grown like a wildfire throughout the state of Rhode Island, primarily starting with the coastal communities, Portsmouth, Newport, Middletown, Jamestown. Providence just did it recently, a couple of weeks ago. This was something we started last year, didn't make it through the council, but it's up now again, presented before the council. I know the governor's office has also, last year, she had a coalition committee put together to tackle this also on the state level, because I believe her anticipation is to put legislation statewide, as opposed to each of the communities doing theirs independently. So unless the council has any question, I know it's open for public hearing, so I welcome any questions, concerns, or comments from the community. I think overall it is in the best interest moving forward, trying to preserve our environment. And it starts with plastic bags, but it goes so much more beyond just plastic bags, and hopefully we can continue moving forward with other recycling incentives to better our communities and our waterfront.
So this ordinance is up for second passage this evening. It is a public hearing. I would, at this point in time, welcome the public if they have any questions or would like to speak for or against this. Please approach the podium.
Looks like there might be a state law this year, too. They might do a statewide.
Now, in lieu of the paper
Before you
bag,
go on,
the plastic bag, they
we
will
swore him
be
in there.
given-
Excuse me one moment, please.
Do we need to swear them for the?
Do we need to swear him in
No, name and
specifically
ad-
for this?
No,
But-
I don't believe so. I thought the
Okay.
rules will allow us to.
Just for the record, sir, you want to just state your name and address again?
George Smith, 28 Appian Way, East Providence, Rhode Island,
Thank you.
02914. All right. Now, in lieu of plastic bags, people will be given what?
They have
Paper bags?
paper bags. They have the option of purchasing reusable
All right.
bags. And there are reusable plastic bags.
All right.
They're just made of a thicker material, recycled
All right.
material.
Yeah. Now, you say this is a wildfire. 12 out of 39 cities and towns in Rhode Island is not a wildfire. I don't think so. All right? But Tucker Times says that this would be the 12th community. All right? Now, the majority of the people, will they go to the problem of buying a bag like this? Or will they use the paper bag?
It's up to their discretion what they
The
want,
majority of the people will use the paper bag. All right?
which is biodegradable.
Which is biodegradable, yes. According to the Nikkei Asian Review, in 2017, 45% of the waste paper imported to China came from the United States. In 2018, the month of May and June, China banned all imports of waste paper from the United States. So you say, what are we going to do with it? All right? Where are they going to get it? In 2018, Vietnam, all right, and this is according to the Nikkei Asian Review, exported 11 times more waste paper to China than it did the previous years. All right. According to Resource Recycling, this February was the lowest amount of waste paper exported to China in the last few years. All right. So what are we doing? We're moving it from one one resource, which is plastics, to paper. Can we get rid of the paper, waste paper? That's another question we have to bring up. There are companies in the United States, and this is according to the Sierra Club, that are making activewear, they're making coats, jackets, they're making backpacks, they're making book bags. There's even one company in the United States that's making a biodegradable dish detergent using recycled plastics in their process. All right? We have to educate people on the importance of recycling these plastic bags. United States, 1% of the plastic bags are recycled. All right? We've even gotten to the point where there are some mills, pulp mills in the United States, that cannot accept waste paper. All right? And whether you people know it or not, I call resource recycling this morning. You know what they're doing with their waste paper? They turn around and paying someone to haul it away. Shouldn't we stop and think before we go so drastic? You talk about cleaning up the waterways. I happen to walk 4 miles every afternoon, Greenway, along the 10-mile river. I took the time today to go by the river and look. I didn't see any plastic bags. The coast along the bay, the majority of that waste comes in from tides and currents. It's not people from East Providence taking their plastic bags and throwing them in the water. You're still going to have that problem. Maybe not as bad, but you're not going to affect it that much. There should be a nationwide ban, such as Australia did. All right? There's no easy fix to it. But we got to turn around like we did when we implemented the blue and the green bins, educate people, recycle it. All right? That's the solution. Or else we'll get to the point where an individual from the Resources Recycling says, well, we're paying somebody to taking our waste paper away, but there's some recyclers that are dumping it in the landfill. So we're moving it from one to the other. I don't think this might slightly help the environment. Ever so little. One city out of 39 cities and towns in the smallest state in the Union. Again, I say that should be a national ban, and that's what we should work on. All right? I've even gone to I've got to do a little more research on it and everything. But because of the waste paper, I read something, I saw something on TV a few years back about using shredded paper for compost. I got to do a little bit more work on it and everything. But that's what we turn around and, well, Steve Kutu's not here, so nobody can answer that question. If we have shredded paper, we have to put it in a clear bag, which is more than likely plastic. What happens to it? I don't put my trash in a plastic bag because it's not going to decompose. All right? Sure, I got to wash out my trash cans probably 3 or 4 times more than the average person. But you got to think of the environment. Thank you. I think this is a feel-good ordinance. When we turn around and we say, well, because Barrington done it, oh, that seems so nice and everything else. What's good for Barrington isn't good for East Providence. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments and your passion about the environment also. The reason I'm glad your walk was really nice, and I think, this being Earth Month, there was a lot of community involvement in cleaning up the city of East Providence. I know every weekend there were various
Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, and just neighborhood residents that took out tons and tons of trash that lined the walkways, grass, parks, and streets in our community, and I'm forever grateful for them that do that to remind us how important Earth that we live in is and how to preserve it. This ordinance, as I mentioned, it's anything that you do starts with one person or one group, and then it can take on a life of its own and multiply. So the state had not implemented anything. They had been discussing it, looking into it, researching it. So in the meantime, communities have realized the importance of it, so communities took it upon themselves to start implementing these laws about reducing the amount of plastic. It's not completely eliminating plastic, but it is reducing the amount that is in the community. And as I mentioned, the governor has and is proposing legislation so that it will be a statewide ban, much like Massachusetts has a great amount of communities that are banning use of plastic bags. It's all in an effort to preserve and lessen the litter in our community. So I thank you for your comments, though, sir.
Any further questions from the council at this point in time? Again, this is open for public comment. Anyone would prefer to come and speak for or against this ordinance, please step up to the podium. If not, I'm going to close public comment for a vote. With that being said or not said at all, I'd like to close this ordinance for public comment and leave it up to discretion of the council.
Mr. President, I think even if it's a slight improvement, it's an improvement. So I'm still in support of this.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Councilwoman, you're not banning plastic bags. It's the type of plastic bag that's being banned.
Right. So if it has a certain criteria that it has to meet, so it's not affecting plastic bags that have to do with laundry. So when you get your dry cleaning, it doesn't have to do with the plastic bags that you use to get your fruit from. So it's a very specific type of plastic bag. And there will be a 6-month education and rollout program where the businesses will be able to call, ask questions. There'll be a communication. I have spoken with Councilman Morado, who had some questions regarding this ordinance also. And last year, when I thought about presenting this to the community, one of the things that I thought would be great would be coming up with a townie bag that would be able to use for fundraising purposes. So it would be a reusable bag, much like most of us carry on a day-to-day basis, just to throw stuff in or grocery shopping. But it would be something that we could do in the community, would provide community funding, whether it's the high school band, whether it's a sports, whatever it is we choose to do. But I thought it would be another great way of getting the community used to and providing them with bags at a reasonable cost,
So,
usually $1.
With that being said, will retailers be able to shift now from the type of plastic bags that they're using to the more durable, more durable, recyclable type of plastic bags?
Correct.
So plastic bags will still be in retailers. It's just the type of plastic.
It'll be a
bag that will
reusable plastic bag. It won't be a thin, flimsy, single-use bag.
Okay. No further
I make a
questions
motion.
from? We want to make a motion, please?
I'd like to make a motion to pass ordinance as stated.
Okay, so we do have a motion on the floor from Councilwoman Souza for health and sanitation. Would anyone like to second that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second by Councilman Rodriguez. A roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morado.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza. Aye. Council Vice President Rodriguez.
Aye.
Council President Berto.
Aye.
Thank you.
Any other?
Past 10 o'clock, do we need to increment?
Would anybody like to make a motion to?
I'll make a motion to extend the hour 15
That's what I was
minutes.
looking for. Thank you. We got a motion on the floor to extend the council meeting an additional 15 minutes. Anyone like to second that motion?
Second that.
Okay, we have a second. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morado.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza. Aye. Council Vice President Rodriguez.
Aye.
Council President Berto.
Aye. Want to move right over to streets and sidewalks ordinance at this time?
Mr. President, if possible, I'd like to table that to our next meeting. I'd like to give us enough time to kind of discuss. And I think I'd like to work with Councilwoman Souza and the city solicitor with regard to maybe a couple more edits. Move to table to the next session.
Okay. With that being said, I'd like to move right on to the next item. Councilwoman Souza, would you like to have the resolution for celebration of Portugal's Day?
Come, sir. Could we just vote on the motion on the table so we have it clear for the record?
I second that motion to table.
Motion to,
Table.
oh, we have to make a motion to?
Yes.
Oh,
Because
okay.
it's an ordinance, it was advertised as
Okay.
an ordinance.
Oh, okay. So we have a motion on the floor right now to table the discussion or defer it to the next meeting by Councilwoman Souza. Would anyone like to second that motion?
Second that.
Seconded by Councilman Morado. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morado.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye. Next item, please.
We have, if we want to work on the resolution.
Resolution.
in celebration of the Day of Portugal for the vote. This is sponsored by Councilwoman Souza.
So I'm just going to combine this with my council item. So we're coming around again June for the Day of Portugal celebration. This year marks the 42nd year that Rhode Island is celebrating the Day of Portugal. Plans are underway with the Rhode Island Day of Portugal Committee for the spectacular festations down in Providence and a torch procession. Honoring the flag, the Portuguese flag represents the official recognition of the Portuguese community, its involvement and contribution to the state, and the history of a whole, and the struggles that we've gone through, and the hopes to provide a better life for our children moving forward. That was the goal of our ancestors, as many other cultures. This will be the third year that East Providence participates with Rhode Island's Day of Portugal in raising the flag. I just wanted to bring to the attention of the council that that date has been set upon for June 3rd. It's a Monday at 11:30. It is open to the community and all that would like to attend. It will be, I'm going to work with the mayor's office. We're going to advertise it in the city Facebook, social media. We'll have a nice agenda, a panel of speakers, some refreshments as always, probably one of the favorite parts, some traditional pastries and food for the guests that come to participate in the event. The resolution just is a repeat from the one 2 years ago that states the importance of acknowledging our community and the Portuguese ancestors that live here and made their lives and homes and continue to do so, and that we will continue to do that on a yearly basis. I make a motion to pass.
Second. Roll call vote.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morado.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilman Brito.
Aye. Okay, moving right back over to the E. Was that council members' communication, and we are on
Yep. Police Department
E.
accreditation process for East Providence. Councilman Morado.
I'll be pretty brief about this. So the reason why I brought this up, as a council, we do budgetary and concerns and stuff like that. I don't know if anyone knows this, but we are insured by the Interlocal Trust, and our police department is currently seeking accreditation status. And what accreditation does is it makes the police department follow best practices as far as policy and procedures. As of July 1st, every police department who is not accredited, either by state or national accreditation, received a letter stating that their deductibles will go up from X amount to X amount. For East Providence, our deductibles per incident, per lawsuit involving a police officer will go up from $2,500 to $75,000 per incident. So that's pretty significant. I had asked the mayor's office quite a ways back to, as far as the where we are in this process. I never got a response, so I'm putting this on the docket. I put it on the docket to see how we can get this, get some of these answers moving and see how we can get this process moving forward. If no one doesn't know already, I am an accreditation manager, been for 11 years, and I'm also a state assessor, so I have a little bit of knowledge as to what the accreditation process is involved. So I will forward questions unless Mr. Furtado has answers, I would appreciate that if he doesn't mind through the...
No, not at all.
Yeah, I apologize for the amount of time that's taken to get the update, but so according to Chief Nebus, we've been working on this for the past 18 months, but for our administration, it's been relatively new. But currently, under the new chief, we have 5 people who are exclusively assigned to the task of accreditation. So,
I won't prolong this. Do you any idea as to when they might be able to achieve it?
I don't have a hard timeline. I know that we're obviously our number one goal is to get it before the deadline, but
okay, I appreciate that, and that's really all I wanted to know. And thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Next item, please.
Riverside Power Drop for Community Events, Councilman Murata.
I just wanted just a few words on that. I want to thank Steve Kuda for going out and surveying the site with me, and I want to thank the Riverside Renaissance for also being involved with that project. I think it's going to be an important one for Riverside Square, and hopefully we can achieve it soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Next item, please.
Constituent concerns regarding public traffic safety, Councilwoman Souza.
I'm just going to touch on this briefly. I'm going to defer it, ask that it be put on for the next council meeting again, so that I can get a little bit more information. So this comes at a request for multiple constituents in multiple high-traffic areas or traffic concern areas in the community, one being the Waterman Ave and Taunton Ave intersection where John Street, Russell Street, Mary Ave, so it's basically the one-way near the Family Dollar that loops around near John Street where the Dunkin' Donuts is. And then it also encompasses, too, that Six Corners area. That those are all one-ways. There's a lot of people who come up the one-ways incorrectly. I see it. I've seen it multiple times. I've had to stop and have the person physically turn around in the middle of the street so that they don't continue to come down to try to turn into a business, ambulances. I mean, it's one of the components I think that needs to be done is I think we need better signage in that area as to alert people that they're going the wrong way, so a wrong way sign facing the opposite direction. It seems kind of common sense, but if you're an out-of-towner, that rotary, that one way at Six Corners is very difficult to navigate. It's hard to get to Broadway. You got to turn around, and it's very confusing sometimes for just residents. Last year, or 2007, I think it was 2017, I had a meeting with DOT about changing that Six Corners back into either roundabout or another intersection because it's just not working well the way it is currently organized. I know it came before the council probably over a decade ago, and there was funding for it at the time. The state was interested in doing it because it is a state road, but the council at the time wasn't interested in making any changes. So I'm going to put this on again for next week. We can go into a little bit more detail, but just for numbers, there's been, from the beginning of the year till now, 7 accidents in that small little zone from Waterman Ave to Family Dollar that have caused significant property damage and or vehicle damage to people in that community. So 6 is a lot. It's almost one every couple of weeks. So I know speed probably is a factor and just the whole makeup of that area. But I welcome an additional conversation with the mayor's office to have a good dialogue for the community with more time.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Rumford Bake-Off and Hunts Mills.
I have mentioned this a couple of times in the past, but that day is here now. Mother's Day, May 12th, over at Hunts Mills. The Historical Society is presenting a bake-off. As of now, they have 47 adults and 13 kids who had entered and registered for this contest. I will be one of the judges there. So the fortunate thing about that is I get to taste all the goodies. However, again, I just wanted to make the public aware of this, and those who are interested, you can contact Cheryl Farrier over at the Historical Society or anyone within the Historical Society, but I would do so within the next day or two just to get your bake ingredients in. Thank you. One other thing, if I may just mention, that during that time, there's going to be an open house for the new educational center as well over there. So those of you interested in going on a tour, that tour will take place at 11:30 Sunday morning. Thank you.
Next item is National Nurses Week, May 6th through May 12th, 2019. Councilwoman Souza.
So as our council president alluded to earlier, the beginning of the council meeting, this is National Nurses Week, and I thought it was important to recognize the nurses in our community that live here and also those that work here. We have school nurses at the East Providence High School, Nicole and Amanda. East Providence Technical School has a nurse, Tracy Bradley. The middle schools, we have at Martin, Kate McKenna, and at the Riverside Middle School, Diane Walsh. At Myron J. Francis, Lillian Martin. At Hennessy's Elementary School, we have Jennifer McKinnon. At Ken Heights Elementary School, Allison Rosario. At the Odom Elementary School, Susan McGovern. At Orlo, Sue Abido. Silver Springs, Maria Fazioli. Waddington, Elsa Carr. And then at our senior center that services many of the seniors in our community, we have Jane Millarner. I'd like to personally thank all of you women who come and service our community, the children in our community, the residents in our community on a day-to-day basis. I obviously personally know the journey that nurses take on a day-to-day basis. We're able to see monumental things in our lives. We get to witness births, so we're there for joyous occasions in people's lives, and then we're also fortunate enough to be there in times where somebody makes their journey, the end of their life journey, which also is significant because we're providing care and comfort for them at the end of their journey and that of their family. So I did want to recognize all those in our community who work here. It takes a special person to make a difference like that in somebody's life, especially since the toll, we treat people mind, body, and soul, not only the community, but ourselves. So thank you again for all that you do. Nurses, the people we care for might not remember our names, but they certainly will remember the type of love and compassion and care that we give to them. So to all the nurses out there watching tonight and in our community, thank you, thank you, thank you for all that you do and continue to do in our community.
Just want to say that I have 3 nurses in my family, including my daughter, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Next item is K-Rob plaque dedication announcement. Council Vice President Rodrick.
Just an announcement. As you know, we have dedicated, along with the City Winterfest Committee, the skate park that the late Kevin Robinson actually donated to the city. So the ceremony is Saturday, May 18th, noontime, on Moniz Playground Park, and there'll be some light and brief festivities at that time. The community, of course, at large is invited. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. That concludes the council communication at this point in time. At the council request, you want to go on further at this point and finish off with what we have left?
What do we have?
Where are we here?
We have
One more.
we have one more item left.
Yeah, that's a sewer abatement process and discussion with Councilman Murata. Everything else
There
has
it
been
is.
satisfied.
I'd like to defer that, table that for the next meeting.
Okay. So do you want to reconvene at this point in time into executive session to go over the claims?
Move to reconvene in executive session, Mr. President.
But before we do?
Before we do that, we just have to do the motion in the second and make the vote on tabling Councilman Murata's issue.
I move to table.
Second,
Again, although it's not a...
an ordinance.
But he just withdrew that. He just for that's not.
Just withdrew it? Okay.
I only tabled it because it was an ordinance.
Oh, okay.
That's why.
Yeah.
My apology.
Oh, so my
Okay,
motion remains.
withdraw.
So just before we go into executive session, which is going to
You
be
need a
kind of the end all, and people probably starting to tune out, I did also want to recognize it is Teachers Appreciation Week, and addition to everything that they do in their personal life, they have a strong influence in our community alongside, obviously, nurses and taking care of our kids, being role models for our children and our students, and that's from the administration down. So I'd like to thank all the teachers in our community, all the principals, secretaries, and school department for all the wonderful work that they do for our community and our children. That's it. Thank you.
Council President, as you know, we went to the executive session at the beginning of this meeting, just so, I'm not sure the camera will be here after we get done, but just so the record is clear, the council did go into executive session under items A, B, and C as listed on the agenda, including 2 matters regarding litigation and 1 of a pending claim pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws 4246-4, Section B. Of any votes taken in closed session need not be disclosed for the period of time during which its disclosure would jeopardize any strategy, negotiation, or investigation undertaken pursuant to the litigation exception of the Open Meetings Law, and that certainly would be the case of those 3 claims. So there was no votes were taken, but they cannot be disclosed at this point.
Thank you, Mr. City.
President, I would second Councilman Cahoon's motion to go into executive session.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon?
Aye.
Councilman Morato?
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza?
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick?
Aye.
Council President Brito?
Aye.
Thank you.